Маруся, раз, два, три, калина чорнявая дівчина, саду ягоди рвала. Маруся, раз, два, три, калина чорнявая дівчина, саду ягоди рвала. Вийшла дівчинонька, рано вранці воду брать, а за нею козаченько веде коня напувать. Маруся, раз, два, три, калина чорнявая дівчина, саду ягоди рвала. Маруся, раз, два, три, калина чорнявая дівчина, саду ягоди рвала.
Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Хто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар. Байрактар. Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Spring on me shore.
Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1068 of the War News stream. And today we have very big news. We've seen that NATO launched a major operation to seize Russian spy vessels today, and they nabbed them. Also, Ukrainian attacks on Russian-occupied Crimea, and also Putin is escalating as more U.S. aid is arriving in Ukraine right now. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world, as we've been able to get major news today that Operation Baltic Sea has claimed its first victory. As we have been able to see today that a major undersea cable link in between Latvia and the Gotland Island was severed by some sort of a Russian vessel operating in conjunction with the Russian Federation government. At this moment, Operation Baltic Sea has been able to seize two vessels that appear to be affiliated with the Russian Federation. Currently, one of those vessels has been impounded at the Swedish port of Karlskrona, and another vessel, which was attempting to return back to St. Petersburg through the northern area of the Baltic Sea, has been seized by Latvian naval authorities and is being escorted back to Riga at this time. A major success for NATO intervention within the region, and once again ensuring that critical NATO infrastructure is not messed with without direct action being taken. At the exact same time, we've been able to see that tensions have been rising in the airspace off of the coast of Kaliningrad, as a Russian Su-30 intercepted an Italian F-35 today, which was operating in the region as a part of the escort for Operation Baltic Sea's warships that were within the area, impounding the Russian vessels. Meanwhile, we have also been able to hear some significant news from elsewhere within the region, as we have been able to see that even further U.S. military support has arrived via commercial 747s into the airfield at Reprisal to be able to unload the equipment and then transport it into Ukraine. However, the situation behind the scenes seems to be getting a little bit more grim, as we have been able to hear that NATO is going to share classified intelligence and information with the war industry concerns throughout the entirety of the Western world, in an attempt to spurn them into mass production of weapon systems, because they will most likely be acquisitioned by Western forces here very soon. We've also been able to see in Belarus overnight that Lukashenko, the quote-unquote president of Belarus, has won the election again. Of course, they have made sure to rig the election fairly, and he won only by 89%, which is considered fairly low, and many people were shocked at this near-election upset by Lukashenko. Nevertheless, Lukashenko immediately, like a fish in water, went right back to being the president of Belarus and openly threatened the country of Poland with outright war, and also stated today that they are now building nuclear silos. Once again, Belarus is not supposed to possess nuclear weapons, but nevertheless, they are building nuclear silos that will house Oreshnik intermediate-range ballistic missiles within the area of eastern Belarus, most likely towards the direction of the city of Orsha. We have also been able to hear some significant news outside of this area, as we've been able to hear today that Colombia and the United States have entered into a trade war at this moment, with the United States leveraging 25% tariffs on all Colombian imports, and Colombia actually producing 50% tariffs on all Colombian exports to the United States. The issue is the return of Colombian expats who were being returned to the nation of Colombia after being arrested and detained by U.S. authorities inside the United States. Meanwhile, in the region of the Middle East, we've been able to see that apparently there was a rat in the Lebanese government, a very big shocker considering that the Lebanese government totally isn't affiliated with Hezbollah in any way, shape, or form, but nevertheless, a Lebanese government official has now been discovered recently to have gotten his hands on classified U.S.-Israeli information, taken pictures of the documents, and then disseminated this information to Hezbollah, once again showing that the Hezbollah link in Lebanon is a lot deeper than one would believe. We have also been able to hear that the Islamic Republic of Iran, however, has begged their proxy forces throughout the entirety of the region, including Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, to not attack U.S. assets or U.S. personnel in fear that the Islamic Republic of Iran will be bombed into oblivion by a U.S.-Israeli coalition effort. We have also been able to hear that Yoon Suk-yeol, the former president of the Republic of Korea, has been indicted today by the South Korean courts for insurrection. And we also have a massive load of Ukraine frontline news that came out today, once again showing that the Russian Federation is still taking high losses and making very little frontline gains, if any, for the amount of losses that they are taking. Of course, I do have to point out that tonight is the Sunday night fundraiser, and the Sunday night fundraiser is for Save the Children, an amazing nonprofit which operates to save children from horrendous wartime situations around the world, and they do especially great work inside of Ukraine, where we have been able to see just recently that the city of Toretsk is being evacuated almost entirely, and we've also seen partial evacuations being conducted within the town of Konstantinivka. Save the Children is seen in these areas even at this time, saving children and their families from a far worse fate, such as remaining in an active front line or near an active battlefield. So if you would like to support Save the Children and help out the children and their families in Ukraine, please make sure to support the fundraiser tonight, because 100% of all donations that are sent in goes directly to Save the Children due to how YouTube Give fundraisers work. But nevertheless,
let's save the children, yes sir.
Let's go, baby. But nevertheless, we have huge news to cover tonight, while we also have an absolutely bussin' fundraiser going on. It's already reached $1,100. But moving on into the Baltic, we have been able to hear that just earlier this morning, a NATO vessel detected a little bit of a something interesting. And really quickly, I better explain to y'all what was going on up here and why this little link is important. This is the Gotland Island. The island of Gotland. This is something that a lot of people really don't look at too much. It's kind of something that you would skip over, but it is the biggest island in the Baltic Sea, and it's directly controlled by Sweden. Throughout the entirety of the Cold War, the Gotland Islands served a very serious strategic significance to the entirety of the Western world, and while Sweden was neutrally aligned, at least officially at the time, it was understood that if there was the outbreak of war on the face of Europe in between the Soviet Union and the Western forces, the Soviet Union would most likely attempt to gain direct control of the island of Gotland, using it as a base for anti-ship batteries and anti-air batteries, which would be able to lock down the Baltic and ensure that the Baltic Sea is completely controlled by the Soviet Union, at least at that time. Even still to this day, while the strategic significance is largely diminished against the Soviet Union, and the Russian Federation really doesn't have the naval or military abilities to conduct such a landing, the island of Gotland still retains a decent amount of significant importance, considering its geographical location within the center of the Baltic. However, there is something that did happen today that the Russians were directly a part of, it seems. A large undersea cable traveling from the port of Ventspils on the Latvian coast to the island of Gotland appears to have been severed today by a Russian vessel of some sort, or a Russian aligned vessel. This is the approximate cable location, and we were able to hear that this cable had been severed as an anchor was being dragged along the ocean floor to be able to grab the cable and snag it. We are understanding that NATO immediately went to work, having Operation Baltic Sentry forces within the area. They started to try and iron down and narrow out who exactly did this, what vessel was responsible for this, and then detain the vessels that were accountable. And we were able to hear, according to information that we had, that Swedish, Finnish, and Estonian warships have seized and intercepted 2 vessels suspected of destroying a Swedish-Latvian undersea fiber optic cable. One of them is seen here, and it actually was being escorted at this time. You can see the small Swedish vessel escorting it into the port, and I want to make sure to come down here to show you all that correctly, of Karlskrona, a smaller port within the Swedish coastline, but nevertheless, This is where the vessel will currently be detained and held by Swedish authorities, while NATO tries to ascertain whether this vessel was actually behind the sabotage of the undersea cable or not. We were also able to see that another vessel that appears to be a part of the Russian Shadow Fleet, a liquid natural gas tanker called Skov, which is actually named, interestingly enough, after the city of Skov, where we saw that a significant attack happened around a year ago at this exact airfield that struck and destroyed 2 or 3 IL-76 strategic lift aircraft that were being used in some small part by the Russian Federation in resupply and medevac efforts in the earlier part of the conflict. We do understand that this liquid natural gas tanker, the Skov, allegedly is one of the vessels that did conduct the sabotage, along with the other Bulgarian-owned vessel that also is being escorted currently into a Swedish harbor. From what we know, from what we would generally understand, one of these vessels is most likely responsible. We can see that there was a large amount of Finnish vessels and warships that were already surrounding the Skov here on the maritime map, as we can put it, and we were also able to see that there was some warships as well, also making sure to escort the Bulgarian-owned tanker into the port at the southern coast of Sweden. From what we were generally understanding, we are going to be seeing that one of these vessels will end up being responsible for the damage that was caused to the undersea cable. We do not know which one it is yet, but nevertheless, it is the first victory that we have seen by Operation Baltic Sentry against Russian sabotage efforts within the area of the Baltic. So far, whenever the Russians conducted a sabotage attempt, they really got away with it scot-free. The only time that we recently saw that that was not the case was when the undersea cable in between Estonia and Finland was cut, and the Finnish authorities immediately apprehended the vessel they believed was responsible before it could leave the Finnish waters where the wire was cut. After that, that was when Operation Baltic Sentry went underway, and we can now see that Baltic Sentry is actually making sure to find and impound vessels that they suspect were the ones who cut the cables. So hopefully we will be able to see that this will further deter the Russian Federation from cable cutting, or if it doesn't deter them, it generally will stop them from doing it again, because the vessels that they're using to cut the cables are no longer in Russian possession and are in the possession of NATO forces. We were able to see, however, that one of the air escorts of the Baltic Sentry vessels within the Baltic Sea was intercepted today near Kaliningrad by a Russian Su-30. And this was a very interesting sight. This is actually an Italian F-35. Some people are shocked by that. An Italian F-35? The Italians have an F-35, an F-35 fighter aircraft, the 5th generation multi-purpose, really multi-role stealth aircraft produced and manufactured by a multinational arrangement of countries that all dedicated technological equipment and systems to create the F-35 Lightning. And you would absolutely be correct. There are Italian F-35s. And really quickly, let me make sure to go and get y'all the picture of this Italian F-35 so you can go and take a good look at it. And here it is right here. This is an Italian F-35. Let me see if I can actually get that connected right there. Here we go. This is an Italian F-35. The Italians are actually getting a decent number of these. Most countries within the Western world are actually getting a large number of F-35s because a lot of countries, including Italy, actually contributed technological components to the development of the F-35, and so a little tiny bit of the F-35 is actually Italian in every single one of them, because some of the avionics systems were actually dedicated by Italian companies and researched and funded by them to be able to get the F-35 program off the ground way back in the day. It appears that the Su-30 was able to see the awesome might of the multinational Western coalition that came together to produce the F-35 and was in sheer awe of the thing, because it just really does look that sick. So here's the clip. Also, really quickly, I want to address this as well. Some people are probably wondering, wait a minute, this thing is supposed to be stealth. How in the world did the Russians know that this F-35 was in the area to be able to vector an Su-30 directly to its location and then follow it? That's actually fairly interesting. Outside of wartime, or outside of the combat use of a stealth aircraft, usually their transponders are left on all the time. That generally is the case for really all military aircraft when not in a combat situation, but it especially is the case for F-35s in the Baltic Sea right now, because turning off their transponders and truly allowing them to pretty much disappear to Russian radars would probably cause the Russians to panic, because outside of visually seeing these things, which would be fairly difficult, especially at high altitudes, there really is no way to actually track these things down for the Russians, so they would be freaking out. So this thing is constantly squawking, as they would call it, while it is currently flying in the Baltic, and that's what led the Russians to be able to know exactly where the F-35 was, and then vector an Su-32's location. So no, just to beat this to the punch, the Russians do not have a radar that can see the F-35. The F-35 is literally broadcasting its location to practically every single country in the surrounding area, so that way it's not causing any severe panic to the Russians that the F-35 is just simply too good for them to see.
I must say that's a pretty damn close interception right there. That's a little too close for comfort.
I would say that is very close, incredibly close, but you can see the Italian pilot up there, and you can see he's holding up a smartphone. He's actually filming the Su-30 pilot back.
Huh, that's interesting. That's a steady hand then, because apparently if he accidentally bumped it to the left or the right or something, he might end up right next to, literally right into the Russian plane, actually.
Man. But still, very interesting to see, and once again showing a little bit of a tenser standoff, but I think everyone knows that this wasn't that tense, because the Su-30 pilot was probably shaking in his boots, because he knew if for some reason he had to try and fire on the F-35, that would be a lot more difficult than one would originally believe. But still, very interesting to see, and once again showing us the kind of standoffs that are currently going on directly in between NATO forces and the Russian Federation in the Baltic Sea currently. This is a fairly interesting occurrence. Once again, we've never seen Russian ships being directly seized by Operation Baltic Sentry up until now, and it's starting to raise a decent amount of questions, but it seems that a lot of people are already heralding the operation as a major success for NATO in the region, and a lot of people are putting in their thoughts about Operation Baltic Sentry and what it's been able to do so far, and it seems as though many people are saying that the Operation Baltic Sentry is going incredibly well. Some others are saying that NATO should directly threaten the Russians, and some are saying that it's good, but real deterrence, long-lasting deterrence, is needed. And so, Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking as well?
All right, so we did see today that NATO brought out all the stops to track down these Russian vessels allegedly, or alleged to have cut the cable there in the Baltic Sea, the undersea data cable. So they brought out the warships, the fighter jets, and the entire arsenal to track down those ships, and they did it in under 24 hours. A very big feat, showing that that operation is largely successful. But it looks like 53% of the audience said NATO Baltic operation is going well, while 22% said NATO should directly threaten Russia, and 21% said it's good, but real deterrence is needed. And on this one, I would say, actually, it's going pretty well. Like, to be able to track down the ship that did it, the two suspected ships, that quick, that does prove that it's making a big difference by having this operation of NATO in the Baltic Sea. But at the same time, though, that doesn't negate the fact that Russia is actively sabotaging our data cables, even with the NATO ships literally standing right by, waiting to nab them. That tells you how bold and brazen Russia's really getting with this, and they're doing it knowing they're going to get caught. So, to me, that is a bit disturbing. It makes you wonder, why is it so imperative for Russia to cut those cables right in front of the NATO forces like that? Because they know they're going to get caught. Why do they find it so important to actually pull that off at all costs? It makes you wonder. But Enforcer, what say you?
It really does make you wonder, and I'm supposing that they're still trying to make sure that at least within the Baltic regions, the Baltic would be cut off communication-wise from the rest of NATO, because all of the undersea cables would be cut. Maybe that's the reason why, because, you know, we're about to move on into some somewhat concerning news here in a moment that some people wanted to say was clickbait earlier in the day, and when you actually listen to it, it's really not. But still, beyond that, I would have to say that this does appear to be a major success at the moment. We're not wanting to actively get involved in a war with the Russian Federation, but I think that this is going to be showing a little bit more of a clearer sign that NATO's moving towards assertive actions to deal with Russian sabotage attempts on Western infrastructure in the Baltic, which I think is a good step in the right direction. But if the Russians continue to try and cut cables, I think that we should start to ramp up the response. I believe that if we were ever able to find a Russian ship as the next step of escalation that cuts another undersea cable, that NATO ships should fire warning shots at the vessel before they actually impound it and then send it to a port that's under NATO control. That would start to get the message across a little bit better that NATO isn't really going to be playing around that much with the Russian Federation, especially with sabotage operations continuing in the Baltic if they do. And that's yet to be seen at the moment. But still, I see a lot of people talking about all kinds of things, as a matter of fact, in the chat about what's going on in between Russia and NATO. But one thing that is fairly interesting, actually concerning, is that we've been able to hear something that appears to be showing us that mobilization is of course underway in the background, and not only that, NATO is trying to get the war industry up to speed on what the future is most likely going to look like. The future is a bit of an uncertain thing. No one really knows what direction the Ukraine war is going in, but one thing is fairly certain, that the future most likely holds higher tensions in between the Western world and the United States of America. And it's become clearer and clearer here on this channel that war may be on the horizon, a conventional war in between the Russian Federation and NATO, with the current kind of a pace that we're seeing right now. And it appears that the folks in NATO in Brussels are apparently saying the exact same thing, as we have been able to hear today that the NATO General Secretary, or Secretary General, Root, has stated that they are going to be sharing classified information, military information, with war industries across Europe to get them ready to ramp up arms production. To read y'all exactly what we have at the moment, NATO has stated or started a process to share some of its highly classified capability targets with the defense industry, according to Bloomberg. The move is a part of an effort to push for increased production in what Root calls a shift to a wartime mindset, practically a war industry or war production quotas. NATO is looking for a way of expressing some of the aggregate targets in a format that can be safely shared to convince companies to increase production capacity. The step would require consensus among allies and may happen in the next few months. Nevertheless, this is becoming fairly clear that the situation is starting to devolve, and according to NATO, it now seems as though it's so inevitable that the situation may devolve in between the Russian Federation and the West that they are now beginning to apprise major industry concerns within largely the war production department of the Western world what is most likely going to be happening, the kind of equipment and production abilities that the West would need at the outbreak of conflict, so that way these companies can already pre-invest and pre-expand to be able to meet the initial demands of the opening of the conflict. That appears to be...
It makes you wonder, what are they sharing? Like, what type of intel they're actually giving over to these EU countries? Because, of course, a lot of people out there really don't know that even though NATO has an intelligence sharing initiative, like they do share intelligence with all the EU states, they don't share every piece of intelligence. Some states get more intelligence than others, depending on the need for it. And right now, it looks like NATO's sharing a whole bunch of top secret intel, which most countries actually still do not get. They're starting to share that with all of them. So it makes you wonder, what caused them to let all this top secret info out? Is there something that is imperative to let them know that y'all need to prepare right now because you're not getting the point? Maybe a war is coming? It just makes you wonder. There's really only one option in my head that makes sense. Somebody's about to move on somebody, and they're trying to tell Europe, since they don't believe the United States, we have the proof right here, and that's why they're declassifying it.
I think that may be the case, but it is becoming fairly evident at this point that the European countries look to be racing, or at least the NATO Secretary General is now racing to try and get everyone up to speed, or at least the war industries up to speed for what may be coming down the line. While Western countries are technologically more advanced than the Russian Federation, and they do have a fighting edge simply because of their technological advancement and industrial abilities, war industry within Europe has seen a large decline over the past 30 to 40 years. Even before the end of the Cold War, we were seeing that some European countries are beginning to decline in terms of arm production and investment that was being done into the armed forces. Especially nowadays, that's fairly evident, as arms production and war industry has become almost a cottage industry in size throughout the majority of Europe. Very rarely do we see that any countries are producing large amounts of equipment at a rapid industrial scale, and one of those few countries is Poland. Poland seems to be the only country that's still doing that at this point, and other countries are still talking about the major concerns of the largely the shrinkage or complete disappearance of major war industries or strategic infrastructure, such as the United Kingdom and Germany, which are still dealing with that at this point. And a lot of German companies have actually moved to outsourcing and exporting military equipment to be able to try and keep themselves alive, as the German military really isn't acquiring or purchasing large enough contracts worth of equipment for those companies companies to self-sustain themselves just producing weapons for the German market. With this in mind, it appears that the information that's being shared is trying to spurn British, French, German, and other major NATO partners into getting their war industries to kick it on up a notch, and to also start investing in largely increasing their facilities' size and output abilities. That seems to be what is going on at the moment inside of Europe. We do not really know what's going on inside the United States right now. We have been able to hear that some ammunition plants have actually expanded their production. For example, the major ammunition manufacturer in Scranton, Pennsylvania, has been expanding their production quite significantly over the past few years. And we've also been able to hear that there has been the openings of several other major munitions plants around the area of the state of Texas. I believe 3 of them have opened over the past year and a half. So it does appear that the United States is taking prudent measures to begin building up war materials and also replacing the older equipment that we're sending to Ukraine. But Europe seems to be having to get the memo right now to start catching up and try and make sure that their war industry will at least be sizable enough to begin to deal with the demands that would be put on them at the very beginning of a new conflict that may happen with the Russian Federation here in the near future. But that's really the question. Is it going to happen? Do a lot of people believe that it would happen? And that is something that a lot of folks have been asked here on the channel tonight, and a lot of people have been giving an answer on that, because NATO has begun sharing top secret intel with European nations to urge a shift to wartime military production. And a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts on this. And a lot of people are believing that NATO has intel of an imminent Russian war with NATO, and that they're trying to get this war production up to speed to be able to deal with that crisis before it actually arrives. Others are saying that NATO simply shared some weapons information, which I'd have to be honest is a bit unlikely, because the companies that produce these weapons usually are the cutting-edge technological producers of the systems. They're the ones who actually research and develop the systems on the government's dime, in all of these countries for that matter. So I would doubt it that NATO is going, hey, look at this cool secret tech that we have. But it's not exactly like NATO has a giant arms manufacturing company that they run that produces all kinds of cool high-tech stuff for other companies to copy. It's kind of the other way around. Some others are saying that NATO is fear-mongering, and some are unsure and undecided at the moment. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so the overwhelming majority, 71%, said NATO has intel of an imminent Russian war, while 15% said NATO's really just sharing weapons info, and 6% said NATO's just fear-mongering. And I would say that even without being privy to that top-secret intel, it doesn't take a genius to realize that war with Russia is starting to look more likely than not. Not that it's necessarily a guarantee or imminent, but it's starting to look more likely than it did before. So without even receiving that intel, I can tell you already that they're probably sharing some plans that the Russians might have drawn up to actually attack NATO states. That could be what it is. But once again, that is speculation. But I really doubt, kind of like the enforcer said, that they're simply sharing weapons info. That would really not be something that NATO would have a prerogative to share. And that's probably not why they're urging a shift to a wartime economy to start producing weapons. That's probably not it. It's probably because they know an imminent Russian war is coming, or maybe there's someone else going to be acting pretty radical in Europe that could cause an issue. So I'm with the 71%. I think they're sharing intel to get them ready for probably a worst case scenario. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it appears that they are getting them ready for a imminent wartime scenario. The war would most likely not last that long. It would most likely last only about a half year before it either went nuclear or there was some form of a brokered peace that would be created. So a war with Russia would last probably less than 6 months if it was to begin in the current present day with economic and military situations being considered on the Russian side. But nevertheless, we want to make sure that war industry is producing enough munitions that we can bomb the Russians into oblivion for the large part if that conventional war begins. Having an advanced and cutting-edge military is one thing. Having enough bombs to obliterate our enemies on the battlefield is a completely different aspect. And it seems as though many European countries are largely lacking on the whole bombs side of things. They have a lot of high tech, but they don't really have a lot of bombs. So they're trying to see that these companies can ramp up production to produce enough bombs so that we can bomb the Russians into oblivion. I want to make that fairly clear, because I just saw someone go, wait a minute, I thought the Russians weren't doing that well. Yeah, they're not doing that well, but you have to bomb them into oblivion if they start a war, because otherwise you're going to be fighting them with small arms and direct fire, and that's not really a great thing to do. you generally want to be able to obliterate them from the skies with the Air Force first, the artillery second, and then the Army comes in third in the last step, and then cleans up whatever remains. So there needs to be enough munitions and explosives that have been produced for all three of those steps to be possible in that order, not the other way around. We do not want the Army taking up the bulk of the losses and having to take up the direct combat action against our foes, and then have to wait for enough shells to be produced and enough bombs to be produced for the Air Force and the artillery to get to work. That's just not the way you want to do it. So with that in mind, it seems as though they're trying to get the war industry ready and get it spurning out enough munitions that they will be able to go the proper way about this, which is obliterating them from the guns of our artillery and the bombs of our airplanes, and not the actual rifle fire of the Army on the ground. So with that,
also, one other thing as well. What does this announcement coincide with? It coincides with the U.S. just demanding, literally just a couple of days ago, for NATO to immediately raise defense spending suggestion guidelines to 5%. And literally today, we heard the announcement that they are going to start sharing this top secret info to convince them to start doing that. So the United States is apparently privy to that information. Whatever the intel is, we've been privy to it, and probably the Five Eyes probably have as well, but the other countries have not. And apparently the other countries in NATO that don't really want to raise their defense spending to 5%, they're taking this approach that they're going to sort of play it wild and loose and hope that it doesn't turn into a global war or a war with Russia. And the U.S. finds that to be very, very bad. Not good planning and not good preparation. And they're assuming, I believe, this is my speculation, that maybe that top secret intel will spur them to raise it up to 5%. But once again, I believe personally that the U.S. might have intel indicating a war is imminent. And it's not maybe just a preparation. It could be actually getting ready for what's about to happen. That could be it as well.
That I would believe that that's most likely the case. Also, one other thing. Let's see here. I saw someone say something interesting. Chat's moving really quickly.
It is.
Let's see. Also, someone called Tony Lunatic Kane said that the U.S. should reveal Russian nuclear silo sites to Ukraine. I don't really think they have to, because that's public information and has been for decades. So it would be a little bit redundant to tell them where those are, because they could easily Google it and see exactly where Russian nuclear silo locations are, because that was, one, discovered by the United States through satellite photography, and two, the Russians have disclosed that for about the past 40 to 50 years by treaty declaration, much like the United States has as well. So you can easily Google really where all of Russia's and America's nuclear silo sites are in both countries, because they've been closed for so long by treaty. So I hope that addresses that well. And also, there's really no information that Ukraine could work with on knowing where their silos are, because it's not really like they have any kind of ordnance or equipment that could knock those silos out, or really that information would help them at all. Not only that, they would be hit by a tactical nuclear weapon, not a strategic one, so it wouldn't even be silo-borne. It would be pretty much lobbed off of the bottom of a plane near to the front lines, and the amount of warning time on that is incredibly low for the large part. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on from this little bit of news that we've had inside of Brussels and Belgium, because we have been able to see that while NATO is trying to get ready for a wartime economy, the United States is making sure that the Ukrainians are already in a wartime economy, as the support has flowed, or the support will flow, and must flow, and does flow. We were able to see that this aircraft today, this 747 right here, a commercial freighter, mind you, took off from Columbus in Ohio, which is a pretty uninteresting place. It's right here. There's the Columbus, Ohio city area. And you can see the Rickenbacker International Airport right down here, which actually houses a decent amount of a, most likely an Ohio Air National Guard refueling wing. And we can also see up here the John Glenn Columbus International Airport, named after the astronaut John Glenn. This aircraft actually took off from, let's see here, LCK. And unfortunately, I think I would not know what airport that would be at Columbus, because I don't know which one would have LCK as the abbreviation. This doesn't really turn into LCK right here, this airport's abbreviation, at least by, just common sense, and I don't really think this one does either. So I actually have no clue where this thing took off from. Maybe it was an airbase nearby. but I'm not really seeing any nearby air bases. So, what do you know? I guess that will just be a mystery what exact airfield that 747 took off from. But it did land in Reprisal, Poland today. And I'm so sorry, everyone. I know some people are like, you're not pronouncing that correctly. We're going to keep pronouncing it incorrectly because I just cannot get that right, and I just refuse to even try because it will end up even worse. But moving on from that, we were able to see another flight, which also took off from Columbus, Ohio today as well, and ended up landing in Reprisal. And then a third flight. A third and last one from Atlas Air, which is a pretty famous cargo company in the United States, which took off from Dover and in Delaware, interestingly enough. The only one that didn't take off from Columbus. So we're assuming it took off from this little airfield right down here, which appears to be an Air Force base.
Oh, Jack, they're taking off from Dover. Oh, man, Delaware. But, but seriously speaking, though, where's the mainstream media right now about the aid being halted? I thought all the military aid to Ukraine was halted indefinitely for 90 days. What happened to that?
I'm telling you what, man, the mainstream media, they lie so badly. They lie horrendously, as a matter of fact. Fox News, CNN, all of them, you name it, they're lying a great deal. Like, I've just never seen anything like it, to be entirely honest with y'all, because they are still, for the large part, trying to push the story today that the support has been cut. The only person, the only group, the entity I've seen that's given an official retraction is NBC, and that's it. I haven't seen any of the others give an official retraction yet because they're just simply infallible and cannot be wrong. So they're just going to continue to lie about the whole situation, although we've seen that 3 747s worth of cargo has arrived today. And some people are asking the questions. I've seen this in the comments section, and oh, goodness, does it drive me wild. But we got to answer the question, why in the world is the U.S. Air Force, or the Strategic Airlift Wing, or I believe it's Mobility Command these days, it's actually based in Dover, let me go back and check it. Let's see here. The Air Mobility Command Museum. So I assume that it's still the Strategic Airlift Command, or something along those lines, but nevertheless, wait, hang on. Maybe I can find it here, because the headquarters is in Dover somewhere, if I remember correctly. I be did. Maybe not. Or maybe it's just not being listed here on Google. Either way, nevertheless, some people are probably wondering why. Why would they take it in a 747, not a C5 Galaxy? Interestingly enough, the 747s can carry more cargo than any U.S. military transport, if I remember correctly. And let me go check that out, 747 cargo capacity. And the 747-400F can carry, let's see, a maximum payload of 124 tons. The largest aircraft in the U.S. Air Force, the C5 Galaxy, has a maximum capacity of, and let me see if I can get that in tons. Let's see. So they do not give it in tons, so let's just do it in pounds. Well, then they don't give the measurement in pounds there. So, yes, we finally found it. Let's see here. Hang on. We got to go find it again. So the 747, actually, interestingly enough, I was actually wrong there. The 747 and the C5 Galaxy actually have just about the same cargo carrying abilities. The C5 can carry about 1 or 2 tons more than the 747-400F variant. So with that in mind, it's very interesting to see that they are using those, but nevertheless, it generally comes down to, I believe they generally like to outsource things to commercial aircraft to transport them for the large part from the United States in bulk to Poland, because there may not be a specific arrangement to be able to drop that off directly at Reprisal, and so they use some sort of a commercial arrangement instead, possibly. But nevertheless, moving on from that, very nice to see the U.S. support continues to flow to Ukraine, even on this very day, much to the dismay of many, and much to the dismay of some who drink the Kool-Aid, and I'm sure, I promise y'all, that in maybe 3 minutes, maybe less than that, probably 20 seconds, someone will be in the chat telling us that this will not last for long, and that just irks me so much when people say that, because...
Well, I already saw someone jumping in the chat just a minute ago saying, no, an executive order was just passed ending all Ukraine aid. It's like, no, buddy. It's like you're a victim of the disinformation. And this time, it wasn't just YouTubers doing it. It was the mainstream doing it. So I can give a little bit of a break this time, because some people still actually believe the mainstream media for what they put out. But no, completely wrong. They misunderstood the difference between military aid and humanitarian aid, and how a media company existing for literally decades can misunderstand something like that with their huge employee base they have is amazing. It's still amazing to me.
It really is just amazing. Honestly, it blows me away that that's the case, that they still are pretty much lying about it flat out. Most of them are, and are not giving any kind of an official retraction. Honestly, an absolute embarrassment for those companies. And you would think that a lot of people will wise up to it, but for some reason, people want to come in here and give us trouble, give us beef. Oh, look, Jack, I can't help that we got it right. We sit there and we do our work. We sit there and make sure to get it right. The fake news, the lying assholes, they sit there and they try and just say stupid stuff just to say whatever the hell they can. And then we sit there and do our job, working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then someone wants to come in here and tell us we're wrong when we're only right. And I got to tell you something, it's just how it is. It's just simply how it goes. But nevertheless, I got to say, with that, it is time for us to move on into the next piece of news. I'm not going to sit there and tell you all about that all day long. But moving on from that, we do understand. We do largely understand and comprehend that many people are currently talking about the analysts continuing to say that the U.S. will arm and fund Ukraine, and that the funding fears are just overblown, and they're just full of a bunch of malarkey. What the hell's going on around here? You know what I mean, Jack? Oh, what's going on, Jack? But nevertheless, Matthew, what are people thinking about that? What are you thinking about that as well? Is that overblown or not?
All right. So many people were fearing, and I'll admit, for a minute, I was also fearing myself. I was fearing that maybe the Ukraine aid was going to get cut off, the military aid, that is. And a lot of people were wondering, are the defunding fears overblown? And it looks like 64% of the audience said, I agree, the fears were definitely overblown about Ukraine being defunded, while 16% said I disagree, there is still a big risk, and 9% said I never thought the aid would come to an end. And I will say, in hindsight, looking back, the fears were overblown. It looks like Ukraine will keep being supported into the indefinite future on military aid, and they might actually end up getting more aid before it's over with, because Putin is not backing down, and he could be about to step in it with the current U.S. administration. That's a possibility as well. So I would say Ukraine has nothing to worry about. We also have nothing to worry about in the pro-Ukraine support community either. It looks like they'll keep being armed, which is a good thing for democracy. But Enforcer, what say you?
I had to say, I think it's a great thing that support is continuing. Support will continue without a doubt. Folks who are just saying otherwise at this point are just lying to themselves because they have other ulterior motives. The truth of it is they either don't believe what we say, although we do this as our job, or they just have something against the current president, so they're going to make it sound like, that nothing can be done that they could agree with because they don't like him. Kind of like how people did the last one, the last president before this one. Some people also did that president the same way, but in different metrics. Like the prior president, people would say, oh, he's killing the oil industry, they're starving, and then they were producing more oil every single year than the last, and we were producing more oil last year. The last term that president had, the last year that guy had as president, we were producing more oil that year than any other year in U.S. history. So, people were just giving the guy a bad rap over something that wasn't true. And now it seems that folks are trying to give a bad rap to the current president over something that isn't true. I guess you could say it's just kind of how the cookie crumbles, but it's always just annoying to us to see that because it's just markedly untrue, and people are living in fantasy land to come up with this kind of stuff to bash folks over. If you want to be a political person, there's plenty of stuff to bash both the prior president and the current president over, but coming up with stuff seems to be pulling at straws. Why don't people pick real things that are happening to bash the current president and the prior president over, but for some reason no one can actually do that. They have to go with some made-up bull to come up with to start bashing presidents over. I think that's just a little bit annoying to me. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well, at least in my opinion, because the fears have been far overblown to an insanely high degree, and continue to be exacerbated by the mainstream media and also other YouTube voices on the internet here at this time and moment. But moving on from that, it is time for us to get on into some other news, because we have been able to hear of some major things happening in other corners of the globe. But before we talk about that, I do have to say that in only about 40 minutes of being live on air, this fundraiser has raised exactly $2,000 for Save the Children. Holy moly!
That's what I'm talking about.
We are $499 away from reaching the fundraiser goal, and I'm just wondering, can we do it? Can we do it? I think we can. I think we can do it. And hopefully the Lee Spring Army will, because the Lee Spring Army has never missed a goal in the entirety of its history. And so I know that tonight There will be no exception. The Least Spring Army will hit the $2,500 fundraising goal, as I just hiccuped right there for absolutely no reason. But still, of course, long live the Least Spring Army, and the Least Spring Army will never die, and it is time for us to move on into the remainder of the news that we have tonight. And we have quite a significant amount indeed. And it is great to know that we have a load of news, as a matter of fact, a lot of it, an insanely high amount, because we've been able to hear, moving on into the Middle East, that we got a rat. Actually, you know what? We're going to wait for the Middle East segment. I just thought about that. There's actually a little bit of a bigger thing that we have to cover up in the middle of Eastern Europe right now, and then we'll move on down into the Middle East. So, let me take y'all up to Belarus really quickly, so that way I can tell y'all something that is a little bit more pressing in terms of importance and relevance in the news today. Many of y'all will know that last night, elections were held in Belarus. And many people went to the ballot box in Belarus, and they were truly looking for a fair election. An election where the voices of the citizens of the Republic of Belarus would be listened to, and a decision would be made on who is the next leader of the country. Many people know that it's tough to really beat Lukashenko, truly a champion of the people. He has been president, before this election happened last night, 6 consecutive terms, practically since the very beginning of the existence of the Republic of Belarus in 1991. He has been a true believer in the Belarusian people, and the people in return have believed in him. He has won every election in a landslide. Everyone who runs in the presidential election in Belarus knows it's a tall order to go up against such a unbelievably charismatic, well put together, and of course, strikingly visually pleasing person as Lukashenko. No one looks more like the crop of Belarus than Lukashenko, the potato in true form. But beyond that, the election was held, and everyone went and they voted. And the results, they started flooding in. Minsk, it was for Lukashenko. Babrusk, it was called in favor of Lukashenko. Barevenichi, it named in Lukashenko. Hrodna, Lukashenko. Vitebsk, Lukashenko. Mogilev, Gomel, Mazir, you name it. It all went to Lukashenko. Crazily enough, unbelievably, in a fairly rigged election, Lukashenko won 89%, 87.6% correction of the vote.
Well, that's pretty good right there. At least he saved about 13% for the rest of them.
And I gotta say, it is absolutely a shame. We almost saw that Lukashenko in the entire country of Belarus fell into darkness. Who in the world can say that they truly are a champion of the people with only 87.6% of the vote? This is absolutely absurd. I mean, we have never seen such a terrible landslide as this. I mean, usually it's like 95%, but who in the world can even say that you really are a champion of the Belarusian people with only 87% of the vote? I mean, that's really showing y'all that Lukashenko is starting to lose some favor with the Belarusian people, because those numbers just are not reflecting a absolute unbelievably loved president of the people. But one thing that
how's it even possible, Enforcer? How's this possible for Belarus to elect a guy with 87% like that? You know, one thing I've been seeing today in all the footage coming out of Belarus, the Lukashenko leader right here, waltzing his way through all the presidential palaces and things like that to celebrate his win, is you'll notice there's one character in the background in all of these shots. That Fluffy. Have you seen that?
That
dog is falling around.
Man,
yeah, it's
I
falling
saw
around
that
everywhere.
Thing. I actually saw.
Let's see that.
Really quickly though, I saw that it casted its vote. Look, it actually went up and casted its vote on the wall right there.
Look at that. That thing's always lurking around though, and wherever this guy's going. I think Fluffy might be the reason.
This thing runs Belarus, by the way. Like, Lukashenko goes back into his room and he goes, "What should we do? I mean, Putin's just kind of throwing us around in the west streets of Belarus like a joke." And the dog sits there and goes, "Meow, meow, meow, meow." And because Lukashenko is stupid, he can understand the dog. And the dog's saying something like, "Why don't we build a nuclear silo in eastern Belarus to really show him? That'll show him." You know, something like that. It's like, man.
That dog's been trained by Putin himself. Sit in and it's infiltrating the whole place.
Man, that dog right there, I think that thing holds the secrets of the entirety of the Republic of Belarus. We could already see that many people were out in the streets protesting in support. I mean, actually, in opposition of Lukashenko. Crazily enough, there was people out in the streets against him. Unbelievable. This is great. Like, this must be the end of Belarus. He only won 87.6% of the vote, and there's people out in the streets protesting him. This is it. That's it. Matthew, he's got to pack up his bags and leave. I mean, with these kinds of numbers and this small crowd, he cannot be the president any longer. He's about to be overthrown here.
I'm telling you, man. It's the silent majority.
Man, I'm telling you. I mean, they come out in the streets. They come out with their flags and their signs, and they go, we don't like Lukashenko. I really don't like him either. He's kind of shaped like a potato. It looks like a freaking potato. He's got a mustache like Mr. Potato Head. He sits there and he talks like some sort of a pipsqueak. I've never seen anything like it. Absolutely terrible. I've never seen anything more clickbaity than that time that he tried to walk out and tell everyone that he was building a nuclear silo, and then everyone took a big shit on the enforcer because they said he was clickbaiting. And then he actually said that today, by the way. He said that they were building Oreshnik silos within eastern Belarus. Oreshniks are an intermediate range ballistic missile, usually nuclear tipped. Fairly rare that they're not nuclear tipped. The only time we've ever seen one that was not nuclear tipped was the one that was fired into Ukraine. And he said that the Oreshniks will be in Belarus from day to day. And he also said, there, close to Smolensk, I dream so. Like, this is some sort of a thing that he was like, I have a dream. And we'll see there. You need a certain distance. It's bad when your targets are very close. And of course, the Belarusian potato speaks with great pride and knowledge on this topic, for he is from the Belarusian soil and will eventually return to the Belarusian soil someday.
Yeah. You know, every time I look at Lukashenko, I think that's like the female version to say the name, by the way. I'm not sure. I see like a lot of people that hate Lukashenko, calling him Lukashenko for some reason, but he literally looks like the de facto like Soviet like state type leader. He has that exact look, the mustache like you were talking about, the hairdo, everything. He looks like a Soviet state leader. He fits the description.
You know, honestly, what he looks like he's about to do, man? He looks like he's about to go, listen, the Chernobyl thing, it's no big deal. You know, something like that. Looks like he's about to do that here in a second. That's what he seems like he's about to do. But crazily enough, they actually are building at this point Oreshnik silos around the area, I would assume, because he said it was somewhere near Smolensk, around Orsha. Orsha is actually a town that no one's really heard about much, and rightfully so. It's really, there's nothing really to look at in Orsha. I can show y'all some pictures. Like, these are the best pictures of Orsha that could be found, and it looks like hell. It largely is hell. It's just not a good place. But Orsha is supposedly where this little silo, or these silos, are going to end up being inside of Belarus. One other interesting thing that I do have to point out, come on phone, work with me here. I get to see my stage directions here. There we go. All right, now that I saw that and had to take a moment to actually do that, Orsha, just, it's not that kind of a place. It's not that kind of a, holy moly. Are we really that close to the fundraiser goal? We are at 2,300 right now.
Oh yeah, we're $200 away, man. We're close.
Ole mole. Also, what is this a statue of?
I don't know. Is that a person in their hand right there?
That hat is so high up on their head. Oh my god! Like it's like not even on their head. It's like just kind of like floating above it at this point.
Oh, I know what this is. This is a visual of Lukashenko, and that's the voters in his hands right there.
Oh, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely
Lukashenko.
right, man. And then this little guy right here. Stop looking, I'm changing here. And then this guy, shut up and do it. You know, something like that. It's like, but anyways, Orsha isn't really that great of a place. It's kind of lame, and that's one shitty monument. Like, my lord, is that supposed to be like a grad launcher or something like that? That's horrendous looking. This looks terrible. Why in the world? What is this?
I don't even know, man. What the hell?
Is that
Putin?
Conor McGregor on his off time?
Oh, damn, man.
I'm about to tell you here, you had a bunch of shiesties or something like that. That's about what he says. What the hell is that?
Hey,
though?
wait a minute. We just hit goal.
Oh, goal!
Jaga Jaga Igor. We smashed the goal, folks. Look at that. Over 2,500.
Look at that. Look at that. Holy moly, we're making it even higher. We're up to 2,600.
I'm trying to catch up, man. It's going so fast.
Holy
oh, my goodness.
moly. Holy smokes! And that was right at the moment that we showed Conor McGregor on screen. Holy moly, what a perfect coincidence. And I just screwed that word up so badly. I was supposed to say coincidence. I was supposed to say coincidence, and I said coinkadink. I was like, man, that was not what to say. But nevertheless, one hell of a thing right here. And also, beyond that, Orsha isn't really that impressive of a town. That's what I was trying to get to originally before we hit the goal and all that craziness. Also, Matthew, Orsha is such a bad place. I just want to point this out. They couldn't even spend like enough money to get a proper like contractor out here to center the words Orsha on the train station. Like it's offset far off to the right.
They just slapped it up there like they did not care one bit, actually.
Man, and they went, okay, there we go, let's go home. And it's like they did not center it or nothing. Like at least they leveled it, but not centered. Don't know what's up with that. Also, hang on, I just want to see one more picture here. What is this?
I don't even know, man. That's like kind of commie.
Like a Soviet grocery store. Man, we're about to have to sit here and go, whoa, look at that boiler. Whoa, now I haven't seen anything like this back in my day. Now maybe it's a commie marshmallow, but I'm honestly doubting it. Whoa. But anyways.
Wow, look at that commie shade of yellow. Whoa. And that gray. Oh wow. Look, it looks even more piss yellow from this angle. Whoa.
Whoa. Look at that. Look at that yellow. Whoa, I don't know, maybe. Holy moly, Nicholas Condor just threw in a 500 and just got us up to 3,200. Holy moly, your stick's not even on the ground, man. But beyond that, absolutely insane what's going on with the fundraisers right now. But moving on from that, we are actually going to talk about what's going on in the fundraiser here in a second. But before we do have a very interesting question. Lukashenko says Belarus will build an intermediate-range ballistic missile launch site for future deployments with Russia. A lot of people are putting in their thoughts on that one. And some people are saying Belarus is a threat to the West. Others are saying that Belarus is just a mild nuisance, much like a cold or something like that. And others are saying that they will never get IRBMs. They just simply never will. And so, with that, Matthew, what are people saying about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so let's take a look at what the people said. 52% said Belarus is a threat to the West, while 36% said Belarus is just a mild nuisance, and 8% said they will never get IRBMs. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not even really sure if they ever got the nukes that they claimed they got a while back. I think there was a report saying that they got some of them, so they may or may not have a nuke. I'm not really even clear on that at the moment. Maybe the enforcers can clear that up in just a second, but when it comes to IRBMs, I wouldn't put it past Russia to give them a few of them, but at the same time, there's always that risk in the background that Lukashenko could decide that Putin's gone too far and he could use those against Russia if he was given those. So I don't know. Like, it's a bit of a tricky one here. If he was given the nukes already, I think IRBMs would be pretty much a shoe-in at this point, because that's less serious than a nuke most of the time. So I would generally say that they are a threat to the West, and it's probably more than a mild nuisance. It sounds like Putin's got a bit of a hold there, more than we thought. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I believe that they most likely are a threat to the West, in my opinion. They do, I understand, have some sort of nuclear weapons inside of Belarus. We don't really know if they're under Belarusian control or Russian control, because depending on who you listen to, if you listen to Lukashenko, he'll say that they have them, and if you listen to the Russians, they'll say that they have them, but they're just deployed in Belarus. So we really don't know who owns them. But considering that they're building a silo for IRBMs, I'm assuming that the Belarusians own them. So I'd say that this is a significant threat to the West, because any country that is nuclear armed is a significant and major concern. So that would be my take on it. I would have to be with 52%. They are a significant threat. But before we get on into the rest of the news that we have tonight, we have a lot of it, mind you. We have loads of news. I do have to say that we have had a very interesting question, a very interesting thing to talk about. The fundraiser, which is not a question. I don't know why I said it was a question, but nevertheless, the fundraiser's gotten up to $3,250. It is about $750 above the fundraiser goal tonight, which is absolutely superb, and it's absolutely crazy. We are so happy to know that so many people continue to support these fundraisers and help them out, because we are helping out all across the world, especially in Ukraine, in support of American and Western interests. And of course, so many of y'all have supported this fundraiser tonight and have helped to make it possible, and helped it to be the case that the Lee Spring Army continues to provide support to folks we support around the world. And so we're going to be calling off some of those top donors here. But before we do, I do have to say a big thanks to everyone who supported the fundraiser and everyone who was here tonight, whether you supported or not. Of course, we can only name off the top donors, because we only have enough room really in the stream to name out everyone who threw in over $50. Because if we named out everyone, we'd probably be here for about another hour without covering news. But I do have to thank everyone who contributed to the fundraiser tonight, because each and every single one of y'all makes this thing possible and makes it the case that the Lee Spring Army will never die and will be a long-lasting organization for sure. And so with that, Matthew, can we hear the top donors?
All right, so jumping into our very long list of top donors of the night, we're starting off with our largest one. It's Nicholas Condor, who put in a very generous $500 donation to the fundraiser to help save the children from the war. Also, we see that a $200 came in from Isaiah, as well as a $140 from Measure Man, as well as a $125 from Just Chillin', and a $108 from LSA Rocks, as well as a $100 from Bob Y, as well as Old Warrior, some guy called the Enforcer, as well as a $100 from Hal Rose, Activista, BC Skyman, Channel Legend, as well as Captain Ted, who put in a $100 along with Greg Carrier. And we also had a $77 from Barry Woodward, as well as a $50 from John Garner, John King, Bearcat, Gary Toes, as well as Gabby White and Axel K. Also, Gladiator put in a $50 along with Tom S., Charles Hazlitt, Purple Gerbil, and Ted Mitchell. And those are all the top donors for now. Once again, a massive amount of support coming in tonight for Save the Children, and that is very good to see. We're currently sitting around, it looks like 600 to 700 above the goal, which is tremendous, because we're only about an hour and 10 minutes into the stream. So quite good to see, and another big success for the Sunday night fundraisers. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say a huge thanks to everyone who supported the fundraisers once again. It's absolutely incredible and amazing to see that so many people have tonight. And once again, it's a wonderful thing to know that we are able to have our own impact in our own way on what is happening in the news that we're covering around the world all the time. It's an incredible thing. It's a wonderful thing. And I gotta give y'all a huge thanks to that so much once again. And so with that, it is time for us to move on into the next little part of this segment right here, where we get to answer some questions from all of y'all. But before we do, I do have to also give a massive thanks to about the 10.9 thousand people who have been here tonight at the peak, and about the 9,000 people who are still here right now. It's absolutely incredible to know that so many of y'all are watching our news, and I hope y'all have been enjoying it greatly. And if y'all do, please make sure to subscribe. We actually hit 337,000 subscribers today. And you heard that right, 337,000, which is quite a large number. And we welcome everyone who has joined us, and we hope that y'all continue to join us while we are covering the news tonight if you're new to the channel. And so, with that, Matthew, what do we have for our first live chat question of this segment?
Oh man, we got some juicy questions here. Juicy like a Wagyu steak that's medium rare. But anyways, let's jump into our first one here. This one goes to David Tablet, who says, I have to wonder if Lukashenko really wants the nukes, or Putin is just telling him they are doing it.
I think that they probably want the nukes, because the Belarusians would get a lot of autonomy if they had nuclear weapons, and especially considering that Lukashenko pretty much runs the country with an iron fist. Then that really gives him an ability to do whatever and whenever he wants inside of his country. No one can really do anything about it. So I have a feeling that he's probably the one who wants the nukes, because that would give them a great deal of autonomy, even from the Russians. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our second one here goes to Anthony McCormick, who said, what were the consequences of letting the Russians in and allowing them to strike Kyiv?
Letting the Russians in, and that's in pertainment to invading Ukraine or letting them into the kitchen. Which one is
well,
that?
So, yeah, I was interpreting his question to mean what were the consequences of letting the Russians strike Kyiv? Maybe in the future, I think.
In the future, I'm sorry, Matthew, I'm not understanding that question. Let's we'll circle back to that one. Hopefully, we can get a clarification on that here in a second. But let's take another one as the second question.
Well, I can go ahead and clarify right now. Let me just reword it a little bit differently. What would be the consequences of allowing Russia to, for example, strike Kyiv with a missile? What would be the response from the international community and also Ukraine itself?
Well, they've hit Kyiv hundreds of times with missiles, so there really is no impact at all. It's status quo, antebellum. So, with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. But I think, honestly, Matthew, considering that the answer to that is so straightforward, because Kyiv gets hit with missiles practically every other night at this point, we might want to grab another one for the second question, because maybe also you're not understanding it, because the answer to that is, like, the answer to that question at least was so straightforward. It's like, that's not even really an answer, because, like, literally just last night Kyiv got hit by missiles. It's just that we don't really cover it much, and there really is no response at this point from the international community over those kinds of incidents. But
what if Russia hit Kyiv with, for example, an IRBM missile, for example, like a serious weapon? What would be the response then from the West?
Probably nothing because Zaporizhia got hit with an IRBM and the response really was nothing. Actually, Dnipro got hit with an IRBM and the response was nothing. So I would assume that hitting Kyiv probably would also mean nothing as well because Dnipro is a fairly large city, at least as far as Ukrainian cities go. So with that, I think that there really be no response because there wasn't a response the first time. I don't really think it matters what city. It really matters the weapon and the delivery system that was being used. And so with that, let's grab another question as the second question.
So this one is going to go to, let's see here. Let me stay on the Ukraine topic for now. I'll save our other juicy questions for later on different topics. So this one is going to go to Mad Machine. You said, could Gazprom pay its employees / debts with finished product to stay afloat longer?
I mean, man, we actually answered that question last night. And the answer to that is no, because you can't pay rent with crude oil. And so let's try and get another question as the second to last question, because I actually want to try and get us some new ones that were.
I don't remember that question. I don't think we answered that. You might have been confused, but I don't recall that one.
No. I remember that one explicitly last night because I remember saying you can't pay rent and you can't pay the bills with crude oil or gasoline. Because you can't buy groceries, that kind of stuff. I remember that explicitly. I think that maybe they didn't hear the answer and so they asked it again. But I answered that one last night. It was way towards the end though. It was like in the last 30 minutes. So let's try and get one more second to last question.
Yep. Moving on to that next one here. It goes to John Bones, who says, why isn't Belarus joined the war if it's essentially a Russian puppet state?
The Belarusians have, that's a new question right there. That's one that we haven't had. But as far as the Belarusians not joining the war, the Belarusians do have a bit of relative autonomy from the Russian Federation, much like any country within the Warsaw Pact would have had during the times of the Soviet Union. And for this reason, the Belarusians still have a bit of the final say on whether they can enter the war or not. Also, there's a lot of issues that have gone on in the background that we've heard rumors about that have created a situation where Belarus could not join the war even if they wanted to. We have heard in the past that Lukashenko has pretty much faced the threat of coup by military officials if they were to enter the war, because the Belarusian military officials did not see the war as being viable and saw the war as threatening to the nation of Belarus and the general kind of a status quo situation that exists in the country with their social hierarchy. Another thing that has really stopped the Belarusians from entering the conflict is that they actually do not have a sizable enough armed force. The entirety of the Belarusian armed forces is only 70,000 strong, which with the amount of troops that are involved in the conflict on both sides at this point, the Belarusians are bringing quite literally nothing to the table. It's an incredibly small amount of troops, and not only that, the Ukrainians could contain an offensive force made up of their total of combat troops, which is probably around 20,000, fairly easily, and probably drive them back into Belarus. Not only that, if the Ukrainians wanted to possibly take some losses in the area of the Donbass, they could actually dedicate enough troops to start counterattacking into Belarus. And that could start to pose a significant issue because, once again, much like the Kursk Oblast situation, the Russians are having to divert a large amount of armed forces and equipment into Belarus to largely defend the country that shouldn't have been in the conflict in the first place. That's generally the best answers that we can give as to why Belarus has not joined the war. And also, it may just be because Lukashenko sees that joining the war directly may not be a viable route for Belarus and their economic and military standing as well. So it may also be an independent decision on Lukashenko's part, outside of any other kind of changing factors for the large part. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the segment. And with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so the final one of this segment goes to, let's see, Mr. Drake 333, who says, now that Russia has been supplied Belarus with nukes, why not supply nukes to Eastern NATO countries or to Ukraine?
Nuclear proliferation is something that the West is not really a big fan of. I will be entirely frank, I'm not really a big fan of giving American nuclear weapons to other countries for them to own. I'm perfectly fine with deploying U.S. nuclear weapons in a country, but giving them to that country is a terrible idea. You never know what could happen in the future, and it's generally a situation that would be best to be avoided. As far as the response, though, deploying nuclear weapons, not handing them off to other countries, just proliferating nuclear weapons until the cows come home. Speaking about sending nuclear weapons forward and deploying them into a place place like Poland, I don't think that would be a bad idea. I think it would be a good way to match the Russians act for act and really make them start looking into the mirror, at least as far as the diplomatic situation would be going. But at the same time, we haven't seen that decision made by the current president, and we haven't seen a change made by the former president on nuclear weapons deployments inside of Europe. So maybe they've assessed that that actually may start to escalate the situation too rapidly, or that might not be that may be a line they don't really want to cross yet at the moment. Possibly. That may be the best answer I can give, because for some reason, neither administration, and both of their approaches are slightly different, have really been a big fan or a proponent yet of trying to deploy nuclear weapons closer to the Russians and the Belarusians. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least so far. And I hope that y'all enjoyed that question segment. A fairly interesting one. I was trying to make sure that we got some good ones and new ones. And also, I think, I really do think, Matthew, that what happened is that you asked that question last night and answered it, and that person may have not been around to hear the answer, so they threw it in again thinking, oh, I'll get the answer today. And then I was like, oh man, we answered that one like last night. And I think you just you just grabbed it again because they threw it in again. Because it is a good.
I just grab them. Me personally, I don't memorize them. I just grab them and throw them in the spreadsheet, and I just ask them away, and it's sort of like in a lottery style. Like I just go through and pick them at random.
Man, honestly, it's a good question, but I didn't want to hit it again because we had already covered it last night. So to whoever asked that, sorry I forgot the name already, but to whoever asked that, it was a good question. I don't want you to think it was a bad one. I was just trying to like skirt over it, but we already went through a pretty in-depth answer last night. I think it was actually like one of the last 3 questions of the night last night too. So I hope that does address that somewhat well. But nevertheless, it is time for us to move on into the remainder of the news tonight. We have a lot of it. And so now it's time for us to move on down into the Middle East, where we were able to hear of a rat. There is a rat in the Lebanese government, and it's this guy right here. Some people have said that this guy looks somewhat familiar. I say that he looks like someone Matthew and me kind of know a little bit. But nevertheless, according to you know what I'm talking about. And you know what's interesting? It seems like this guy kind of played the same game, you know what I mean? That we were kind of guessing, but let us read, folks. Can we read? Matthew, are we illiterate?
We are literate. Yeah, we're not illiterate.
Well, sometimes, Matthew, I have a hard time reading instructions. I might be illiterate. I'm just kidding. But anyways,
that might be dumb.
That might be dumb, yes. It might be. Like,
man, hitting you with the curveball there.
Man, I was like, oh, what do you mean, Jack? What do you mean? But anyways, according to an international intelligence report released by The Times, Suhail Batid Garb, the head of the Lebanese military intelligence in southern Lebanon, as well as over a dozen other officers in the Lebanese army, have been actively sharing top-secret information about Israeli forces with Hezbollah attained from a security control room operated by the U.S., France, and United Nations interim forces in Lebanon, otherwise known as UNIFIL. The intelligence provided to Hezbollah by Garb and other officers has allowed them to obtain advanced warning of certain Israeli raids and patrols in southern Lebanon, making them able to evade detection and move weapons. Well, isn't that crazy? The Lebanese government is actively taking it upon themselves to help out Hezbollah. That's crazy. We almost said that like a year ago or so here on this channel, and we've actually run into some people who I think would fit this criteria fairly well that are here inside the United States right now. Not naming names, but hopefully the Department of Homeland Security is making sure to keep an eye on certain kinds of folks who have weird backgrounds and are a little bit odd, because it seems as though this is actually starting to become a bit of a reoccurring trend, Matthew. It actually seems like that is the case. But
yeah.
never.
You know, it really seems like what we were saying the entire time, that the Lebanese government itself is actually trying to help out the proxy forces. They're not ridding Lebanon of those forces. They're letting them remain there, and they're not doing much to get them out. And based on the rat they found here, it sounds like that is the case based on this. This is probably not the only guy right here. And once again, this is according to an international intelligence report. So allegedly this guy did this. Got to make that clear as well. But if this guy was proven to have done this, I'm sure there are many others in there doing it with him. He's probably not the only one.
And it will be interesting to see who those people are and what their affiliation is with the Lebanese government. But once again, It goes to show the Lebanese government and the Lebanese citizenry appear to have an active invested interest in supporting Hezbollah, which is a terrorist organization without a doubt. So make sure, folks, if you see anyone out there who may have a affiliation with Lebanon and may seem to have some sympathetic views towards Hezbollah or American actions against Iranian proxy forces that are inside of the nation of Lebanon, maybe sit there and take a second. Sit there and think. Are these people really working within Western or American interests, or are they trying to support Iranian interests? And that really will start to get down to the real meat of the matter and get the actual answers that we're looking for. But it appears that whether or not these people helped out Hezbollah or not, we have been able to see that Iran is starting to beg their proxies not to do anything, according to FlyTuck's news. Iran has ordered its proxy forces to exercise caution, fearing an existential threat from the president's return to the White House. Well, the former president's return to the White House, and now he's the current president again. Commanders of Iranian-backed militias have been told to maintain defensive positions and avoid provocation towards U.S. forces or allies. Iran is also conducting a large-scale operation to identify Israeli spies amid concerns of infiltration in high-ranking offices. That's according to The Telegraph and republished by FlyTuck's News. A great thing to see. But it nevertheless does seem, at least to us at the moment, that things are once again starting to get a little bit concerning for the Iranians in the Middle East. All those little tunnels that they built aren't really helping them out that much, at least in the end. It seems as though, from what we're understanding, that the Iranians are scared, and they're begging their proxy forces to not cause an escalation in the United States that'll get them bombed. But the real question here is, are they going to even be able to save themselves from getting bombed in the first place? And it looks as though many people are saying, no, that is not going to be saving them from getting bombed. And so, Matthew, what are people saying about this right now? Are people saying that the U.S. is going to bomb them regardless, or that they'll spare them and give them a respite? What are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Oh, the lies they'll tell about me now. And Iran is telling some lies out there. I'll tell you what, Iran's telling some big lies, actually. All of a sudden, they're saving face. They're telling the proxies to stand down and stand back and stand by. But do they really mean it, though? Do they really mean it? 64% of the audience said that will not save Iran from U.S. attack, while 14% said that will save Iran from a U.S. attack, and 11% said U.S. attacks were never going to happen. One thing I feel very, very confident about is we will be seeing attacks happening on Iran. They'll most likely 100% being carried out by Israel, probably targeting the nuclear sites. That's probably coming within a couple of months, would be my guess. And the U.S. actually might be involved in those airstrikes as well. That's also a high likelihood. So nothing is really going to save Iran from the attack. They can try to pretend like they're backing off all they want. It's not going to save them. So I'm with the 65%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'm with the 65%. Nothing's going to save them from the coalition bombing that will be happening here in the future against the Islamic Republic of Iran. Nothing will save them on that. And so with that, it appears that things are not going to be going well for Iran. Very sad for them. We will play the world's smallest violin for them here in the future. And I see some people saying, oh, what's up with this whole deal about Lebanon? Well, it's an interesting thing, you see, because we actually happen to run into some people a while ago. This was the last time we talked to them was about 8 months ago. But for a while there, we were actually talking to some Lebanese Americans, and they seemed to share common values with us, at least from what they would say to us. And they would say that they were in support of the United States and American interests, and yada yada yada, blah blah blah, and it was great. And then. And not to explain the whole deal, that's been explained on a stream like a week or two ago or so. But then we stopped talking to them, just completely cut off contact with them for a myriad of reasons. But nevertheless, we were talking about them a while later because some things don't really add up. At least what we know about them, some things do not add up that well. So we decided to go and start checking their social media accounts to see if they had any comments to make about what was going on in Lebanon with the Israeli actions against Hezbollah. And what we saw is that they were posting stuff that was completely different than what they told us they believed to our faces verbally. They were posting completely different stuff on the social media platforms that they were on, such as things like Lebanese people will fight and kill every Israeli and American as long as they have breath in their bodies and a gun in their hands, that kind of a deal. And then I started to think, that's a little interesting. And then it made all of the dots that didn't really connect together too well connect a little bit extra. Because it's like, how in the world can you say to the face of Americans that you're talking to, yeah, we're all for the United States, and then at the same time post on social media that Lebanese people are going to continue to fight and kill Israelis and Americans as long as they have breath in their bodies and a gun in their hand. It's like that's two totally different things, and there's really no way that you can even make those interchangeable. They're literally two separate ideological splits. So that was something that was fairly interesting. That was something that made me think, I wonder if these people have any connections that may not be that great or not. Who knows? But still, that was a very weird, like, we've never run into people like that. Those people left a lasting impression on Matthew and me because we've never met folks that were as, like, I guess the best way to put it is messed up as them. So they have left an impression on us for a good while. Story time from the Enforcer right there. But that's why I'm saying maybe if you see anything like that, maybe it's time to start asking some questions, because it's a little bit weird how they did a complete 180 when they thought we weren't talking to them anymore and they didn't have to act like they were waving the red, white, and blue, and then they could go back to just saying that they honestly hate the United States and really the Western world as a whole, which was a little bit weird. But beyond that, moving on out of the Middle East and on into the Republic of Korea on a small
Also, by the way, before we move on here real quick, we were going to cover, and we are going to cover, the situation going on between the U.S. and Colombia. I just want to tell y'all real quick, the trade war is already ended, and it looks like Colombia has caved to every single demand the U.S. had, so it's over.
Oh. Yep. Oh, okay. Well,
how about that? They lasted for, what, 6 hours or something like that? So much for, going up against the U.S. That didn't last very long.
Hang on. Oh. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to try and remember how to monologue that here because that's new. Because I already had a whole
segment on his head right there.
Dude, I was legitimately like using these segments, and I was gonna use the Ukraine war news. Well, actually, I was about to go over to Colombia after Korea, and I was using this time to, in my head, get together what we were going to say about that. And now, I thank you for doing that, Matthew, because you just threw a rock through my glass house of monologue, and it's just sitting on the floor in shards. I don't even know what the hell I'm going to say about that now, but we will find a way to talk about it. We will find a way. But on a quick footnote, we did see that Yoon Suk-yeol has been indicted for insurrection in the Republic of Korea. So with that, we're now going to move on to the big news of America's first victory in Latin America, it seems, with our foreign policy objectives. To try and quickly cover this as best as I can, many of you may know that there's currently a operation going on inside the United States. I'm going to speak about this as neutrally as possible, but I will explain what happened to get us to this point. Some of y'all may know that there is currently an operation being conducted by immigrations and customs for the large part in the United States to locate, find, detain, and then deport individuals who are illegally inside of the country that may have conducted crimes or have some sort of a criminal background in the U.S. or overseas. Currently, from what we understand, a very large number of these people are being detained and arrested on a daily basis, sometimes in the hundreds. And from what we're also understanding, there was a large amount of these people who were supposed to be returned to Colombia today on U.S. Air Force C-17s that were going to be flown out of the United States and back to Colombia. Colombia refused the flights as they were on their way, and the aircraft had to turn around and arrive back in the United States without finally achieving the objective. The government of Colombia then immediately started to issue threats about this situation, saying that they were not going to accept these people on C-17s. They were going to retain their dignity, although from what I understand, they don't really have any dignity because they're some kind of a criminal with a criminal background. So, beyond that point, they were going to send Air Force One of Colombia, which is a 737, to go land in the United States, pick up these folks, and then return them back to Colombia. The United States of America's government, through the Office of the President, immediately levied significant sanctions. Well, not really sanctions, but tariffs against the country of Colombia, imposing 25% tariffs. Right afterwards, the president of Colombia came out, talked a great deal of smack, and then imposed 50% tariffs on exports to the United States. It appeared that at that point, a trade war was on, and that was actually going to be the monologue that I gave you all, said the United States was now in a trade war with Colombia, and there were some incredibly interesting things that were happening with that. But now, as we just heard, and I will be showing y'all this, that there has been a statement from the press secretary letting us know that the Colombians have just caved in. All sanctions from both sides have dropped, and they are accepting unconditional terms in America's favor. And so the C-17s will once again take back off and deport the people who are on board the aircraft at this time. So
So what does that mean, Enforcer? That means the bananas will remain at a steady price. It means you'll still get your Folgers and your coffee. It also means that the exotic fruits like the mangoes will still keep flowing. So it's all good now. And also Hot Dog Man's in good shape too because Colombia's open trade once again.
I gotta say that I was gonna be entirely honest. I thought there was going to be some bloodshed over the United Fruit Company again, like there used to be back in the 20s. You know, it's like I was thinking it was about to happen again. I was like, you know, because it was getting kind of towards that point, especially with a trade war like that going on. And once again, just got to put this out there really quickly. I'm just reporting the news, folks. I'm just trying to tell you what was going on with that because it seemed like it was going to be a fairly big ordeal, and it now appears that it's over. That's not supposed to be a political comment, and also, once again, do not make political comments. This is a no politics channel. I'm just simply trying to explain what happened in the foreign policy sphere, which did have a small part to play with what was going on domestically inside the United States, and that's the aspect in which we were explaining that. I made it as neutrally worded as possible, did not say that I supported or condemned those actions. But nevertheless, that is the news. That is what happened. So please do not turn that into a political thing. And I'll just be completely frank, that's not a request. That's more so of a statement. If someone tries to make it into a political thing, it's usually a timeout or a ban on the spot. So just letting y'all know. But beyond that, still, it appears that the United States on a foreign policy level has won a victory over Colombia, as there was a general issue with, not really an issue with returning the Colombian citizens, but more so of how they were going to return. And it appears that the real battle was over whether they were going to fly back on a U.S. Air Force C-17 into Colombia, or whether they were going to be flown back on the Colombian Air Force One. And it now appears that the Colombians have relented, and they will now be flown in on C-17s. So as far as the diplomatic spat that occurred there, it appears that the United States was able to win unconditionally on that level, which is a fairly interesting thing. So we will have to see. We will largely have to see what's going on with that, you know, in the future, because I do not know what the U.S. trade relations are going to be looking like with Colombia. They do actually make up a significant market share of the bananas that are imported into the United States, and while that isn't necessarily a major part of the economy these days, back in the day it actually was. Bananas were a craze back in the day, and some of y'all are probably gonna be like, why? They don't even taste that good. Well, back in the day we had a totally different kind of a banana that was being grown in South America and Central America, which was a completely different breed. Nowadays we eat the Cavendish banana, but back in the day, I forgot the exact name of this species or breed of banana. But it was a little bit smaller, but it was much sweeter than the Cavendish banana. That's actually the banana flavoring that y'all get in a lot of your candies or drinks actually comes from the original bananas that were being grown in Central and South America. And not the Cavendish banana. But that's a whole thing for another time. But bananas were a huge craze back in the day. And the United States took on pretty much a mission of controlling Central America by force to ensure that the bananas flow. So think of the movie Dune, but instead of them harvesting spice and there being giant worms, there was just bananas, and the worms were the U.S. Marine Corps walking around with Tommy guns, and if you threw a rock at them, they'd grease you. Like, that was generally what Central America was like back in the 20s and 30s. With that, I hope that explains that somewhat well. Not as big as the thing. Oh yeah, it is the Gros Michel. Thank you, Crushinator. That is the specific breed of banana. You can actually still get them. Like they're not completely gone. It's just that there was a blight that killed off a large amount of them, so it's a little bit more difficult to get them these days than it was back in the past. But if you'll want to see them, let's see here. Here they are. Gros Michel bananas.
Man, those bananas look like they were busting, honestly. These new modern bananas, they're just not quite right.
Man, these bananas were unequivocally bussin'. And apparently in the 50s, Panama disease, a wilt caused by the fungus Fusarium oxysporum, wiped out vast tracts of the plantation's banana population in Central America, though it is still grown on non-infected land throughout the region. It's just that they're not really purchased or really put onto the market anymore in the U.S., and there's also a large amount of these really plantations, I guess you could call them, in Southeast Asia that still produce the Gros Michel variety of banana. And I've heard that they're incredibly good. I've never had one personally, and hopefully one day I will be able to get one. Let's see, Gros Michel for sale.
Oh, you can pre-order them. I've never heard of pre-ordering some bananas.
$17.
$17
for one.
What the hell? One fruit.
So how much is the extra? Holy moly! No.
Oh my God. Man, first of all, I'm never pre-ordering my fruit. I'm never going to do that in the history of the world. I'm not pre-ordering fruit. Number two, who's paying $17 for one fruit?
Wait a minute, hang on. They're sweeter, creamier, and juicier than normal bananas. We really enjoyed this
Juicy?
banana.
Wait,
Man.
I didn't know a banana was juicy at all, really.
Well, dang, look at that thing. Dude, that thing's got juice.
Man, that's... oh, man, that's juicy.
Man, juicy fruit. That must be where that comes from. But let's see. Hang on here. I've been enjoying my bananas even more than I imagined. It was intriguing to learn that this variety, was our mainstay until the mid-century and was not completely wiped out. Couldn't wait to purchase and compare the flavor and texture with common bananas that we have today. The Gros Michel was definitely tastier, denser, creamier, and the color inside was strikingly more golden. There was much more banana flavor that I would describe as a sweet and a little tangy. Man, people are giving flavor profiles of this thing, but it's honestly interested me in getting one.
Yeah, it really does, honestly. Also, scroll back up to the top, by the way. Also, by the way, that might be a good video to make, like a side video just for like a Patreon or something like that, is like reviewing this fruit. That might actually be an interesting thing to make. But go up to, do they have sugarcane on this website?
Sugarcane. I wonder if they do. Let's see here. Banana variety box. Let's see. Can we just see?
Go to shop. Go to shop because this is bestsellers. I don't know if that other thing's gonna be the bestsellers. Let's see here. Oh, let's see. They got the variety box. Look at all this fruit.
What
man.
the hell is that?
Stuff. That's a sabotage. I've never even heard of that.
I never even heard of that. Let's see here. Man, there's. Oh, hang on, y'all. We're gonna have to take a little rabbit hole here really quickly. To see.
Dragon fruit.
Chocolate,
oh, wow.
raw chocolate.
Guava. Oh, wow, look at that, a raw chocolate. That's crazy, a cacao.
$67.
Oh,
I'd still
my
want to give
God.
it a shot. Actually, that tastes really bitter and nasty, like in its natural form. Like, I probably would not want it. But let's see. I'm trying to see if they have the pawpaw fruit, which used to be...
pink lemon. What the hell? That's a real thing? I thought that was like a fake thing.
Caviar lime. What is up with these exotic things that we've never heard about? Let's see here.
Water coconut. Look at that. Actual $47 for a coconut. That's crazy.
Man, you know when you sit there and you go, you know what I mean? Like, and you say it backwards, you go, nah, moi. They have a banana called that.
Yeah, really, for real.
But let's see here. What else do we have? Dragon fruits are not that special. Like, you can actually get those in stores. So, like, white guava. Huh, okay. Sugarcane, there it is.
Oh, sugarcane, there it is, man.
Oh, buddy.
Damn. I've been looking to get my hands on that for a minute. Like, I'll have to remember this site right here. I might have to make a video on that, like reviewing the sugarcane and put it on Patreon.
Man, look at this. This is crazy. I don't know what that is.
A sour sop. Man, it looks kind of weird, honestly.
Dude, look at... It's like cheese.
Ugh.
I don't know if I like that.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't know about that.
Let's see here. Sugarcane
juice frozen.
Frozen. Dang.
A nice apple.
Frozen again. Let's see. Dang, this is interesting. This is very, very interesting. But they don't have pawpaws, interestingly enough. Guess that's really more of a North American thing, not a South American thing. And I think these are like tropical fruit importers. But very interesting nevertheless. That is very... I kind of want to get
that. I kind of want to get the cacao, the sugarcane, and the interesting banana and like review those on a video.
You know, I would be interested in doing that. I would like to try that. But let's see. Fresh fruit. Let's go look at the... Wait a minute. They have other kinds of fruit that are not available, that are currently in season, but you can still get it. So I guess this is up with a pre-order thing. You can get a $47 avocado, by the way.
I'm just saying, you can get an avocado for like $6 at Costco, so I don't know what the hell is going on with that.
Man, this is an avocado blessed by the Lord himself. Like, it's like that must be it, because I've never seen one that is that much. But let's see. Man, there's loads! There's loads of stuff! A black avocado. Now, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I've never seen that. I don't know if I'd want that.
I don't know if I want that either. A blood orange.
A blue grape for $177. Now, I don't know about that now. I can see some grapes at the store that are like muscadine grapes or something like that. That cost that much. A buttercream mango. Now, this fruit's kind of getting highway robbery. This one is like $127 for a mango. That ain't happening.
This is extremely rare, whatever this is. Let's see what the reviews are on this thing. I bet you'll be like, it's nasty. No one's even reviewed it. Like
they're marketing fruit like it's a Pokemon or something.
Dude, look at the way they're holding it and everything. It's like a trading card, you know, something like that. Let's see. Coconut cream mango. That actually sounds pretty interesting. A custard apple. That looks almost like a heart. Like, I don't know about
Ugh.
that.
Uh,
Let's see here. Cuban red banana? Commie! Like, it's a
I think you
freaking
got an
commie
embargo on
banana!
those.
Dude, you see this thing and Che Guevara pops out of it. Like, it's like that commie. But anyways, let's see, what else? Dude, I'm honestly just incredibly interested in this right now.
A fruit punch mango. Now that was interesting. That was really cool.
Let's see.
$177 for a
Whew.
fruit punch mango. You gotta like that flavor.
Jeez. Dude, this is like the prices of fruit back when the United Fruit Company was running the place, honestly. It's like, dang. This person took some bites out of that thing right there, to show it off. And then we got the honey jujube. I didn't even know that the jujube was a real thing. I thought that was like a name that you just gave to someone. But let's see. Ice cream bean.
Ice cream bean. That's
What is
interesting.
what is this? What are the reviews on this? Any reviews? Wonderful. I waited an entire year for this. Holy moly. The fruit is so fresh and so sweet. I smelled the smell of vanilla ice cream even before I opened the box, and the taste is even better. So delicious. It tastes just like vanilla ice cream. I'm so glad I ordered a large box. How much does a
A
large
large
box?
box. This man invested some money in the ice cream
Holy,
bean.
holy moly. Like $177. Well,
Man, I'm not gonna lie. This for ordering this fruit right here, it's like, huh? It's like if somebody ever inspected it, they'd be like, "Who orders ice cream bean for $200 in a box like this?" So I think that would get some attention or something.
I'm not gonna lie though, dude. The reviews on all of these really entice you to get them. Like they're like, "What? It tastes like ice cream." It's like that sounds kind of cool. But anyways, we will not continue to bother you all with looking at raw, rare imported fruits. But nevertheless, it is an interesting thing, and the trade war is ended, so the fruits will flow, much like the spice must flow. So moving on from
Also, I
that.
hope Miami Fruit's grateful for the free advertising we just gave them there because that was not intended whatsoever. But they've got me hooked. I'm gonna go look.
I'm going to have to go take a look myself, I'd have to say. But moving on from that and into Ukraine, we, of course, have our news from here. And we were able to see the Ukrainian ATGMs hitting the Ruskies in the Kursk Oblast. Look at them go. Oh, blow them to pieces.
Oh,
And oh, hang on. Oh, and they got it. Oh, my goodness. I
man,
mean,
some people in here talking about they're looking at the fruit 8 to 10 pounds. Based on the price on that site, I think 8 to 10 pounds would be like almost $1,000 or something like that.
dude, man, like, why in the world is why in the world does the cartel deal in drugs? They could just sell rare fruits. It's like, they can
Well,
make
they
like
actually
this.
do. They actually do sell fruits like that. They'll actually go steal avocados. They'll steal other fruits as well, and they'll go and sell them for an upcharge. They actually do that.
Psst, psst, hey, you want that Sinaloa avocado? Like they open up their coat and they got like avocados in there. It's like, wow. It's like, whoa, no way, dude. Does the DEA know about this? No, it's all good, man. It's all good. Something like that. It's like, man, that'd be wild, honestly. Being in the avocado trade like that. But anyways, moving on from that, we also were able to see some Ukrainians prepping the drones for launch. You see this guy giving a nice salute. That ain't no Roman salute. But let's see here. We can see them prepping the drone. We can see this guy spraying it down with that antifreeze, or whatever they spray the wings down with to not have ice build up. We can see it in the snoo. We can see loads of these things lined up ready to go. We can see the engine spooling up, getting ready to roll, and that thing rolling on its way out into victory, hopefully. Still really cool. Love to see it. Really neat. Moving on from that and into our location unknowns, we have a lot of them. First off, we finally had another Roadnik section. I don't know what the hell that was back there. And this
Oh my goodness, man! It's like I don't know. It looks like one of those Japanese little trucks or something like that they have over there, but they cut everything off and they put like I don't know, like rebar or something at the top.
It's a mystery. It really is a mystery. I just don't know. And they also have a brush guard in this UAZ 469, which makes it look wrong. Like, this whole picture is just wrong. And this guy is taking a picture outside of a Lada. So this whole thing is just a whole lot of wrong. And I don't know how to really explain it beyond that. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see the contact NUKes. Now, the Russians have Rodniks, which are the Russians who, modify the cars. The Ukrainians have something else. And I finally come up with a name for it today. Contact NUKes. These are the guys who are too obsessed with Contact 1 ERA tiles to know when it's too much or not good. And this is what we saw today.
What in the world?
It is a recovery vehicle that is literally immaculately covered with endless amounts of Contact 1 ERA tiles. I don't even know why they have this many of them on the tank. It doesn't make any sense. But they literally covered every single part of the Bergpanzer with Contact 1.
Man, somebody had some extra cash to spend.
And some free time. I don't even know how the
Yeah.
hell you spend all the time to tack these onto the thing. Like, I'll be honest with y'all, the amount of contact love that's going on in Ukraine is too much at this point. It's getting to the point it's senseless because you're not supposed to use this much of it. And on top of that, it's not even really that effective anymore. Contact 1 is way behind the times. And yeah, it might help out a little, but it's not helping out much. It practically might be like putting a sandbag on the side of the tank. It looks interesting. Honestly, it looks like some guy just got up there and started roofing this tank. But beyond that, I think it's getting to the point where it's absurd at this point with the amount of Contact 1 being used. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we were also able to see the Russians doing what they do. I'm not even going to explain the clip. Observe.
Buddy, that tank's not moving.
Maybe they can help it.
Oh, look, it's mating.
Oh, look, it's stuck.
Опа, да ну нахуй.
They're all stuck.
Стой!
Well,
Back it up, you stupid! Back it up!
man, he can't even back it up. Like, none of them can get out. They're like literally trapped right there. And who in the world said that tracks create better mobility? I'm not seeing that here. And someone's about to come in, you're wrong, and whatever. Anyways, moving on from that, we also got to see a little bit of a street somewhere in Ukraine. This was, by the way, filmed by the Russians. A little bit of losses, bleed.
The losses are coming in too fast and too hard. Man, this is like a freaking graveyard out here of some Russian context. We're getting the context up front.
Man, I'm telling you, man, like the context is lost, much like the troops. But moving on from that, here's the casualty report. Ole mole!
Oh my gosh. Oh man, they've gone without Bobcat losses for 2 days. What the hell's going on? But they're keeping the other losses high though. But the Bobcats must have been wiped out a long time ago or something. But tell us more.
Man, I'm telling you, man, if they keep on not having losses like this, I honestly believe, Matthew, that we may be seeing a future where the Bobcat joke dies just because there isn't even any Bobcats. That's very scary. They need to get at least one like every 2 days or so. But moving on from that, Miss D, keeper of the record, said that 1,650 Russians and Norks wounded and killed is the 21st highest daily loss, tied with December 27th and November 16th of last year. Artillery drops to below the 7-day average, and tanks, drones, and vehicles are in the usual range after highs earlier this week. And now for the weather. 1,650 Russians and Norks have been killed and wounded in the past 24 hours, along with 37 APCs, 79 supply trucks, 7 main battle tanks, 14 artillery systems, 51 drones, and 2 cruise missiles. Overall, the numbers are looking juicy. And when you see the front lines, you can exactly see why. In the Vovchansk area, we got to see a Novator armored car. Produced in Ukraine, by Ukrainians, for Ukrainians. What a cool looking armored car. Moving on from that now, the Vovchansk front, and on down to Nizhnya Duvanka, we got to see a grad being destroyed by a drone. Check this out. This was done by the Ronin unit. And we can see the drone flying around. It's a part of that Ronin unit. It's trying to get that Rome in. See what I did there? I tried to make ramen rhyme with Ronin. But we can see the drone making its way towards the tree line after spotting a metallic Russian vehicle in the trees.
Once they spot the Russian vehicle, they send in the drone to take it down. Send them in.
Excuse me, do you know what the Russian vehicles are? Yes, they're in Novorossiysk now. They had to run. But we can see them now hitting the Russian vehicles.
Rolling needs to charge battery.
Low battery. Just like Rosie
Oh.
O'Donnell.
Oh, they came in a little too high. Oh, they're coming in low. Oh.
Whoa,
Oh,
Jack, I
man,
think
low
they missed it,
blow.
Jack. It didn't really look like they were hitting that one, Jack. I'm not gonna lie. What the hell's going on around here?
Jack. Joe Blow coming in with the low blow. Oh, my God.
Greenland is a continent covered in ice and snow.
Also, by the way, if you are signing up for our Patreon today, y'all got to like witness like some insanity from me today on the Patreon because I actually uploaded one of my outtakes for trying to do the voiceover for the Greenland video. That's part of the insanity that starts happening when I can't pull a voiceover like the way I want it. It's just that. So y'all got to see it.
Didn't you do that outtake while I was cleaning dishes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that might have what inspired me to go nuts, actually.
You're in the water over there as I was cleaning the dishes. You just sit there.
Water's
Greenland is
sitting
a continent full of ice and snow. Like it's like, man, and it was perfect. It was literally perfect.
Man, just some casual Saturday Night Live insanity, you know?
It was quite truly something to witness. Man, and we see the drones just continuing to circle around.
I was just waiting for somebody to show up and roast me because I realized I set myself up for a perfect roast here. I was waiting for somebody to jump in and say, "Who needs to sign up for Patreon when you act insane here?" I was about to, oh, well, fair enough.
Oh, man, that's a pretty good one.
And nobody even said it. I just came up with it myself. I just felt like self-roasting today.
Man,
I feel like feeling like Hot Dog Man for one day. I figured I know how it feels now.
Oh, man. Honestly, I'm not going to lie. I get a pretty bad headache about 30 minutes into the stream, so that might be why y'all are noticing I'm a little bit more quiet in the clips, is because I'm just trying to deal with it. But moving on
Wait a
down.
minute. Wait a minute, Enforcer. You got the wrong loss report. You got yesterday's loss report.
What?
Yes, you got the wrong loss report.
Well, what do you mean?
No.
What do you mean,
They
Jack?
did not get 0 Bobcats 2 days in a row. I was about to say, what happened there? Something's gone wrong.
But this is the only casualty report on the Kiev Independent. What the hell are you talking about? This is the same one. Same one, same time. It's the one for the day. It says the 26th of January on it. Look, you think I got it wrong?
Okay. Wait a minute. I saw people in the live chat. I saw 3 people tell me it was wrong. 3 people told me. I don't know what's going on here, but 3 people told me.
People are always trying to tell me how to do my job. I mean, I'm telling you what, you think I got it wrong? This is all drawn up to plan. It's perfect. What are you talking about?
Someone says not the same, actually. I think you might actually have the old one and the other one.
No, I had the same one. We can go and check. Look, Jack, it's the 20. Oh, wait a minute.
No, it is different. Oh, dang it, man.
What the hell's going on here? I took it straight from the Kiev Independent and put it on my map. What the hell's going on? Am I blind?
Listen,
I must be blind.
Listen, Jack. You got it wrong. Admit it.
Look, I gotta be honest with you here. I don't know what's going on, but I got that wrong, and I'm very sorry to everyone. I'll have to make an apology video, but
look, whoa, Jack, whoa, you said there, you got the Russian law, and you got the Xi Jinping, and everything.
Look, it's blowing up.
Come
it's
on,
really
man.
going badly. Come on, like, what are you talking about?
What are you doing? What are you on the Colombian blow or something? I mean, come on, man.
Listen,
look, I was up in the hill with Xi Jinping, hills of England, cliffs of Dover. They'll always be in England. I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about here. But anyways, moving on from that, that was a big screw up by me because I didn't even realize that. But anyways, moving on from that and also moving our map over towards Ukraine, since we'll probably be showing some stuff there, it is time for us to move on a little bit further down the line and to show the Russians getting hit near Svedove. And here's the clip.
And they're smacking them hard yet again. They're bringing in the Skull Mustache Brigade this time.
Man. And look at them. They're just slamming them.
Oh, look, they show a stock image of one of these artillery pieces right here, looking kind of jank, looking like he came off of Alibaba.
And we can see them here continuing to slam Russian forces. I don't know what it is tonight. We got a nice number of killjoys in here. But we can see them continuing to hit the Russian forces quite significantly, mind you. I gotta tell you, a lot of killjoys in here. A lot of people who do not like that kind of comedy, which is incredibly
Don't like our
unfortunate.
economy. Oh, I don't blame them, Jack.
I gotta be honest with you, the price of eggs really tough one. But another thing I gotta be honest with you here. Another thing that's a great big joke. Some people are saying that we need to drop the jokes. If we drop the jokes, we're dropping you because you're the only joke that we're seeing here. An absolute huge one. Have you seen the size of that lad? Absolute unit, absolutely large. When he falls down the stairs, you're sitting there thinking that they're landing on the moon. It's absolutely crazy. But beyond that, we were able to see that a lot of people are saying that it's kind of weird. I'd have to agree. Some people are also saying that there's a little hat trick going on, and I'd have to agree, a little hat trick. I'm not really a big fan of hats. I kind of like my hair. But let's see. Are they adding an explosion effect? Anyone else noticing that? No, we're not adding an explosion. That's just the sound of one of our haters falling down the stairs. Really sad. But moving on from that. And moving on into...
He fell down the banister, Jack. He fell. He grabbed the rail. You know the iron. Anyway,
I don't even know if he knows what he's talking about. But moving on from that and down to Seversk, we were able to see a tank commander driving his tank around in Seversk. Look at it. People were going, "Wow, that's a beautiful tank," and it really is a great tank. It looks wonderful. Look at it go. It just went right by the camera.
I'm not gonna lie. That one is getting old though. Like that one's killing me.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, man, I'm telling you. I get a respect around here. Oh, man. And someone said it right when I started doing like, time for Rodney. But moving on from that and down into the Touretsk area, we were able to see 4 Russians getting captured today. We're going to be muting the rock. Excuse me. I'd like the war footage, please. Hold the rock.
I like my war footage playing with audio.
And we see them climbing out the back of the APC here, laying down some fire on those Russians.
Someone said, "Man, those eggs are insane right now." Well, it's not just the eggs. I think it's pretty much everything, actually.
But don't worry, folks. Depending on how you feel, the prices will be better. Because remember,
you know, some people think the groceries are not cheap or not expensive. You know who those people are?
well, they got to be people who are well off.
They're millionaires. Oh, they're actors.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, man. But remember, folks, no matter who you vote for, as long as you feel like the political party you're with is right, things just magically become better because the party you like is in charge. It doesn't have anything to do with economics or actually improving its situation. It just has to deal with about feeling good. And so we can see our first Russian coming out here and surrendering. And we can see him crawling. We can see the second one coming out now.
Tom Exman said, "I just eat twice a day." I feel you, Tom. I eat twice a day, too. I just eat twice a day. I cut one meal out. I said, "Oh, one meal's got to go." Just 2.
Yeah, we actually only eat 2 meals a day, no joke. But we can see here the third Russian coming out and the fourth one.
Where are these Russians hanging out, by the way? Like the dingy dungeon or something?
The basement. The fifth one's coming out. Here comes the fifth one.
You notice they had a stop sign at the front door, too. Like, they literally had to put up a stop sign right there to tell the Russians to stop. Like, don't go out there. When they put an X over the Russians, that means they brought them out or something else?
I don't know. That's a good question. I have no clue.
I think that means they brought them out of the hole down there. Like, they were hiding out.
Yeah, I think so. I think that is the case. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also get to see them planting some explosives in Touretsk. You see the Ukrainians planting the explosive and then wandering off, and there goes the building.
Oh,
just
man.
like that.
When the explosions are ringing out in Touretsk, it makes you want to jitter. Oh, look.
Oh, like they're chasing him down.
It's the Barney Fife routine. They're chasing this man down. He's not... Oh, look at him. He's tripping over his feet.
Man, I'm telling you, this headache's getting rough, man. Like, it's like behind my right eye. Oh,
man, I'm sorry.
Man,
that's tough one behind your right eye.
Yeah, for some reason they hurt when they start pushing on your eyes. If y'all know what I mean, like from the pressure and stuff. But we're going to power through and get through the news.
Let me know if it goes left.
Man, we got a right kind of headache or something like that.
Oh, no, not like that. Not like that.
Or I actually heard that Elon would call it the Reich kind of headache, but we can see here the
Oh.
Russians get
That was actually slick.
That was a pretty good one, wasn't it, man? Oh man.
Oh man, those oh my god. Man. Oh man.
Just drop that one right down there. We'll just put that there, and that's the end of that clip. But really nice to see they got that guy and took him prisoner. But moving on from that and on into the next clip further down the line near Novobot-Makivka, we also got to see them hitting a Russian tank. And so here's the clip. Then I also got like
you don't want to see how he checks for a fever. Oh man, putting the hand on the forehead. Well, it could be a little different.
Oh man. Oh my goodness. Oh Lord. Also, someone said my super chat got banned. Well, you shouldn't even be able to throw one in tonight because it's a fundraiser night. So I think that's why I didn't go through, because there was no way you could support it with a super chat tonight. But
that's not the right kind of question.
Oh man. But moving on from that and down near the area of the actual across the battlefield, we got to see the 425th knocking down a Russian flag that was on top of a slag heap. This slag heap is supposedly where Chris's mother was born. But we can see here.
Oh. Also, PWN29, we actually got to your super chat last night. I do remember yours for sure.
Oh, yeah.
We got to it.
Yeah. I thought you were talking about tonight. I was like, there's no way in hell you can throw one in tonight. I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, what do you mean? Because whenever we see that, we always take that seriously. Because, we're always like, did we miss it? And then like tonight I was like, nah, there's no way we missed it. Because there's no way to throw it in. Like, I can actually prove it to y'all right here. Here's the YouTube control room. Chat revenues, $0. We don't make a cent tonight. So with that, I hope that does, let me reorganize that properly. I hope that does address that well. But with that, we are on to Velika Novosilka, where we also get to see a Ukrainian drone acting as an artillery spotter.
Man, it looks like this place has been ravaged. Looks like the houses have just been ripped to shreds.
Man, it really has. And the Ukrainians are about to rip it up just a little extra to get those Russians that are inside of those houses.
We had a bot just jump in here. He said, Ruski win. Buddy, that's not even real English.
He said, Rusia winner. That's it. Like, that was it.
Let me go see what that profile picture was. I'm curious at this point. Let's see what that was. Yeah, I don't even know what this is about.
I don't even know either.
Buddy got 5 views on one of his videos, though. He had all of his bot friends watch.
Dude, that's like that one guy that when we went into that motorcycle store and he was like, so what do y'all do? And we were like, we're YouTubers. And he was like, oh, yeah, I'm a YouTuber myself. I've gone viral. 15,000 views. I know. And we were like, what? And we were like, wait a minute, what? I was like,
I hyped him up, though. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. I said, that's pretty good.
Dude, I remember I was confused. I was like, why in the world would you be like, we didn't even tell the guy we were YouTubers, and then he wants to go out of his way to be like, 15,000 views? I know, you're standing from a legend. I'm like, what? I'm like, what do you mean? Anyways, we got to see this AMX-10 RC in action down there on the southern front. Aren't these things just cool? Aren't these things so neat? I think they're great. But moving on from that, now that little clip, and on into our next one, we also got to see further on down and into the area of Kherson that a Russian radar today was destroyed of significant note. It's called a Krasuka. I don't know much about it beyond that, but great to see it was knocked out. We were also able to see around the area of the Dnipro River that the Ukrainians were cooking up Russians fresh on the griddle.
Like your redneck said, who says that? The motorcycle man.
And we see them hitting the boat right there. Holy moly. Holy smokes. And here they go again. Here, the land now, and they're going to land it now.
This is a controlled hard landing. As the Russians would call it, Earth to Sky, brothers. Flip upside down and fly upside down.
Eternal flight, brothers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what it was. Not flip upside down, fly upside down. I can't keep their statement straight at this point.
Man, it's hard to fly 6 feet under the ground.
We're flying at negative altitude.
overgy, pull up, sync rate, whoop, 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 something like that. But anyways, moving on from that and out of that little area of Kherson, it's now time for us to move on up and into Kyiv, because we have a load of news to cover today, because President Volodymyr Zelensky put out another speech. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Speech!
Здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Сьогодні було багато військових доповідей із командувачами. Була також розмова з міністром оборони України про ситуацію на фронті, ключові наші напрямки Донеччина, також щодо районів проведення Курської операції. Скоро вже півроку наших активних дій на Курщині заради захисту української землі. Ми зберігаємо буферну зону на території Росії, щоб убезпечити від російських наступів наші Суми та Харків. Я дякую всім нашим воїнам, які захищають українські позиції та знищують окупанта. Передусім, сьогодні я хочу відзначити воїнів 95-ї окремої бригади за дії саме на Курщині. Також хочу відзначити воїнів 25-ї окремої повітряно-десантної та 68-ї окремої єгерської бригад за ефективність на Покровському напрямку. І також 24-ту та 100-ту окремі механізовані бригади за героїзм в боях за Часів Яр і Торецьк. Я дякую вам, воїни. Доручив сьогодні посилити командний склад наших військ на Донеччині. Генерал-майор Михайло Драпатий направлений для керівництва оперативно-стратегічним угрупованням військ Хортиця. Це найжорстокіші напрямки боїв. При цьому Драпатий зберігатиме повноваження командувача сухопутних військ, найбільш чисельної частини наших Збройних сил. Це допоможе поєднувати бойову роботу армії з правильною підготовкою бригад. Саме фронтові потреби мають визначати стандарти комплектування і тренування бригад. Генерал-майор Андрій Гнатов направлений в Генеральний штаб на посаду заступника начальника Генштабу. І його завдання – це новий рівень підготовки оперативних штабів та вища якість взаємодії між штабами і фронтом. Ми обговорили ці та деякі інші зміни з главкомом Олександром Сирським. На всіх рівнях завдання поставлені. І ще одне. Я хочу подякувати всім українським розробникам та виробникам далекобійних дронів, наших ракет. Кожен може побачити їхню ефективність, як наша зброя повертає війну в Росію і як зменшується російський потенціал війни. Неспокій в Росії, зменшення російських можливостей продавати і переробляти нафту, менші глобальні ціни на нафту – це те, що потрібно заради миру. Цей рік має стати вирішальним, і наші дії повинні впливати на нашу долю. Саме так і робимо. Ну і, звичайно, усі хлопці з Служби безпеки України, Сил спеціальних операцій, усіх наших Збройних сил України, СЗР, ГУР, кожен, хто додає свою силу, свою влучність до спроможностей України. Дякую вам всім. Слава Україні!
Героям слава.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1068 of the war. And that is going to be moving us on into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. But of course, I got to give a massive shout out to everyone for raising $4,054 so far on tonight's fundraiser, $1,500 above the initial fundraiser goal. And Matthew, do we have any more top donors to speak of tonight?
Yes, we do. We have one more remaining top donor of the night, and it was actually an anonymous donor, but I believe I know who it is. It was a $333 donation, and I believe that was Hal Rose. He did not confirm it, but I think it was him. So Hal gets the credit, and thank you very much, Hal, for that massive support of the fundraiser once again, getting us over $4,000 raised, a tremendous feat. But Enforcer, back to you.
I gotta say a massive thanks to everyone once again for throwing in massive amounts of support tonight and getting this fundraiser to where it is. Y'all are, of course, helping out around the world in support of American and Western interests, and it's an absolutely amazing thing to know that the Lee Spring Army continues to live long and never die. And so with that, Matthew, take us on into those questions. What do we got?
All right, so let's jump right into the live chat questions tonight. And once again, as a reminder, there were no super chats tonight. The super chats are quote unquote banned. They are forbidden. They are not here tonight. So it's all live chat questions and also donations to the fundraiser. So jumping right into our Morse code decoders of the night, we had Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Kevin J, Paul Schultz, Dave Millsaps for Royal Fluffness, Arabelle Garbo, and Joni Dog. They said the Morse code for today says NATO caught Russia red-handed thanks to Baltic Sentry, and now we need to drive this home. And LLT, LSA.
And ding, 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 ding. And that's the sound of money, and y'all got it dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I got to congratulate y'all greatly once again for supporting this channel by deciphering the Morse code. I don't know where I was going with that. I think the headaches really distracted me at this point. But a huge shout out to y'all once again for getting that correct on the 1068th day of the war, and hopefully y'all continue to get that correct for another 1068 days from here. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and it's time for us to move on into some live chat questions. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so our live chat question, our first one here is going to go to Wellness LSA Latvia, who says, what do you think could be the best developments and surprise from the West in the near future? I would say two things, Wellness, two possible things. The United States could completely 100% cut off all LNG from Russia flowing to Europe. That could be one thing. Another big thing is that all $330 billion of the frozen Russian assets gets given to Ukraine in the form of military aid. Those two things happening would be massive, massive pieces of news coming out, and that would be the best developments that can happen probably in the imminent future. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would personally have to agree with both of those. That's actually incredibly good answers right there, I would have to say. And so I would have to agree with Matthew on that. And also a great question, Wilderness LSA Latvia. A great one indeed. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, big shout out to Weatherby Studio, who just put in a $50 donation to the fundraiser and helped bring us up to $4,111 of the $2,500 goal. Tremendous to see. We're almost close to, well, not really. We're 1,000 away from doubling it. My math is a little bit off, but we're getting close to almost doubling it, about $900 away or so. So very good to see. But moving on here to our next live chat question, this one goes to Positively DJ, who says, thoughts on the possible tariff war between the US and Colombia, and will it happen, and will our coffee be impacted? This should be an easy one.
No, it already ended and we won. So they will continue to sell the coffee and they will continue to sell the bananas and everyone will be happy. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least the best I can. And with that, it's time for us to move on to the next one. But that one's already been created and solved, really, in the course of a day. I got to say, that was a quick little diplomatic little fracas there. It happened and ended so fast, it really was hard to track, to be entirely honest. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And also, hey, look, it's Bogota in Colombia. This is the capital, by the way, if y'all don't know. And have y'all ever seen Bogota, Colombia? Take a look. Wow.
Look at that, Bogota.
Man, look at that. And then you have this over here. You got the massive football stadium. Wow, impressive, magical even. And then you have Medellin, Colombia, which a lot of people really know well. And don't they, Matthew? Don't they know it well for reasons, for some kind of reasons?
Yeah, when you said that, though, it reminded me of the Fedayin or something like that, the Medellin.
Man, it kind of does sound a bit like the Fedayin, a little bit, but not a bad place. Look, they even have a train. It can't be that bad. They have trains. And also they have this river that looks kind of like the chocolate river from Willy Wonka.
Oh, man, that's that one you fall in and you don't quite come out.
Man, when you fall in this one, these weird little people, they're short, will come up beside the river and they'll go, oompa, loompa, doompity dee. You know, and like they'll start singing a song. But still, man, I mean, like, look at this. Look at this. Truly amazing. Truly incredible stuff. Look at this.
I mean, actually, looks pretty nice, actually. That's a kind of, it looks almost fake. It's the terrain is interesting.
It is very interesting. Incredibly interesting, as a matter of fact, how nice this is. Look, they even have houseboats.
Ah, yes, the houseboat. And also some dinghies.
Yes, some dinghies, but mostly houseboats. It's a very interesting kind of a place to... Well, look at that. A multiple unit, an electric multiple unit. Not bad, not bad.
South America is real nice. We have to move down here.
Yeah.
Hey, there's Cali.
Hey, look, it's Cali. Hey, I thought we had one of those here in America. Let's take a look at it. Oh, once again on a hill.
There's the Hollywood Mountain.
Hey, yeah, look, there's the Hollywood Mountain. Hey, look, Matthew, it's Santa Monica. Look at that. Oh, look. I don't know what this is.
Hey, look, it's Beverly Hills.
Hey, it's Beverly Hills. Hey, oh, look, we got the Boyd. Ah, something like that.
Sick bird.
Chocolate River. Again, let's see here. What else do we have? Oh, the cat's been repainted now. Okay. I guess that's a normal occurrence. But what else do we have? What else? Oh, look, we've got a smaller Christ the Redeemer. Hey, isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? It's like Rio de Janeiro out here. But let's see here. Oh, what else do we have? What else do we have? Oh, nice parks. Honestly, the parks around here are incredibly nice. That might actually be a golf course, though, because I see a little golf
course, I think.
Yeah, but that's still really pretty. It's really nice. Is this a small model of the U.S. Capitol building somewhere in the middle of Cali?
What is that devilish figure on top?
Why, well, Matthew, as you know, that is just well, it's some politician, and y'all can fill in the blank. But let's see here. If I was like, I really want to say who I'm thinking, but people are going to take it a wrong way, and so I can't. But it's not about them as a political figure. It's just more about their personal appearance. But we'll save that one. Fill in the blank on that. Y'all will come up with your own thing. Don't put it in the live chat though. But let's see here. Trying to find some. Oh, look at this. Not bad. Not bad.
Kind of like some interesting architecture.
Man, look at that. They got a bus terminal.
Yeah. Oh, it's a bus terminal. I was about to say, what is that? That's interesting.
Man, they bus them in. Man, honestly, this is so nice. It's like, well, I kind of got to ask the question, like, just to be completely frank with y'all, why in the world did they have to come to the United States? Like, it doesn't look that bad down there.
Well, I don't think they're necessarily coming mainly from Colombia. I mean, there are some being like some illegal migrants being returned to Colombia, but I believe mainly most of the illegal migrants are coming from other places. It's just some of them came from Colombia.
Yeah, but for even like several hundred of them, because once again, from what we understand, really only the ones with criminal records are being targeted at this point and deported. Even the ones with criminal records, why are there several hundred of them that fled Colombia? Because I mean, it looks pretty nice down there. Like it doesn't look that bad, honestly. It looks kind of like Birmingham, Alabama, which isn't that bad.
Well, I guess if you can't find a job, it doesn't matter how nice it looks. You're living on the street, so they're assuming coming to America will change that. But you're not guaranteed that in America either. You got to have the skills and things like that to get a good job these days. It's not easy.
I mean, what in the world does Lima in Peru look like? Huh.
That's not that bad looking, really. I think it's just mainly probably the crime. I'll be honest with you, it doesn't look that bad. After you see pictures of the place, you think, huh, that's kind of interesting. Like you have this image in your mind, like everybody tries to make it out like it's just a big hellhole, but it really doesn't look that bad. Now it looks like it could slide off, like that could be an issue, but rather than that, it looks okay.
But I mean, like I don't really, okay, I got to be completely frank here, folks. I don't really get what the whole thing is of like looking at these pictures, and of course these are some of the cherry-picked pictures, but we're still seeing, generally what the city is and what it has, and it has quite a lot of, like, all these cities have an incredibly high amount of amenities. Why is anyone trying to come to the United States? I mean, it looks kind of fine down there, and I see some people saying, it's brutal. Doesn't look that brutal to me. I mean, hell, like, we don't have anything like this in Alabama anywhere. With like a nice,
yeah, but I mean, if you go check out like Guatemala, go check out Peru, you're going to see something a little bit different. Huh?
We were in Peru.
Oh, you're looking at Lima?
Yeah, we were looking at Lima in Peru. That's Peru.
Oh, I thought you were looking over there in the other place we were just looking at, Colombia.
No, we moved on from Colombia straight to Peru. But some of the states are bad, like Nicaragua and Honduras and Guatemala. Those are fairly rough. But, for there to, like, it just doesn't look that bad, to be entirely honest. Some people are saying gang violence. I mean, hell, have y'all seen downtown Birmingham? I mean, there's, like, actual gangs down there, and Bessemer and stuff. You can get shot. Like, there's,
What's the average wage, though? And, like, let's take Colombia, for example. What's the average wage in Colombia?
Let's see. Let's put in median, let's see. What is the metric? My headache's stopping me from being able to think of the wordage to figure out the
average salary in Colombia.
Colombia. Let's see here. Median income. Maybe that's what I'm looking for. Median income. Colombia.
That works too.
Uh, so let's see. The minimum wage, wait, hang on. Can't really find an easy answer to this. The median income in Colombia is between 500 and 800 US dollars per month. So there we go. That's the answer.
All right, so let me see here. So it says, as of 2024, the average monthly salary in Colombia is approximately $1,060 USD. So let's see here. Let's see. The minimum wage is set annually by the government. The minimum wage is approximately $250 to $300 per month. The median household income in Colombia was 15,000 USD in 2021. And what is the average cost of living? Average cost of living in Colombia. I'm consulting the Oracle of Knowledge here for this. This is actually very helpful. Let's see. It's ChatGPT. Let's see here. So the average monthly expenses for a single person in Colombia is approximately $1,000 a month, excluding rent. And they're making on average about $1,000 a month. So that's why people are fleeing.
Interesting. Well, I guess that is a reason to leave, but it looks so nice. It's like, it's kind of weird, you know, because it looks really nice, but then at the same time, it seems as though they may have reasons to try and leave. So fairly
Although we're looking at like the major populous like places like the cities and things like that. So this is where a large population of the like top rich percentage of the country is going to live, like in Medellin and the coastal towns and things like that.
Well, let's go
so
look at a
that's
smaller
why
one.
it's going to be like that.
Like this one. Let's go look at this
That's
one.
another big one.
Well, this is a smaller town compared to the others like Bogota and Medellin. So, you know, like, oh yeah, yeah. There's already a massive
there you
change
go.
though. Yeah. So
I would imagine the living conditions are probably 4 to 5 people a house, because if they're making about $1,000 a month on average and it costs $1,000 to live there, excluding rent, then they need to get rent as cheap as they possibly can, like $50 a month or something like that, because otherwise they're not going to be able to make ends meet.
man, there's really a major difference in between the big cities and just even the slightly smaller ones. Like this is literally a Hoover shack down here from like a hobo camp.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. Although that's probably the best they can do, though, with those type of wages.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's got to be rough. Oh, dang, look at this giant grain elevator. Jeez, man,
Wow.
this is like from like the height of railroading, honestly. Like they used to have these all over Iowa and stuff, but that is crazy. That thing is huge. It's like at least like 15 stories tall.
Yeah, that's a huge one right there.
Man, krasse. But nevertheless, what is this?
A Universidad Santo Tomas.
Man, we got that damn Villa Vicencio up in here, man. Damn.
They're
Look
giving
at
out
that.
them bachelor's degrees.
Man, you know what they ought to do? They ought to take all them bachelor's degrees and give them to the veterans. Or something like that. But anyways, with that, someone is about to write in and complain about that joke, I'm sure. Although it was just a joke. It's just a prank. Don't take it seriously. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also Monster Lab said, LOL, been to Cuba much? Yeah, Cuba. Goodness. And also when I laugh, I'm not mocking the people of Cuba, by the way, because the people of Cuba are generally oppressed by the government, generally speaking. Some of them support the government, some of them don't. But Cuba is extremely poor, like very, very, very poor in Cuba. So it's tough. But anyways, moving on to our next question here. This one goes to Mr. Drake333, who said, maybe just make it clear that all ships suspected for it get seized, even in international seas.
That's what Operation Baltic Sentry is already doing, so I think they've made that fairly clear. And that was a pretty good point, because that's exactly what they did. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you once again for throwing in an interesting point. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
All right, and this one is going to go to Kush. And the Kush, they said, stupid question. No, it's not stupid, not at all. They said, but why aren't we starting to cut off Russian internet access as well, like they're doing in the Baltic?
I guess we just don't really care, or that the Russians largely contain their own internet themselves. I would guess that would be the best answer I could give, because I honestly would not know why beyond that. So with that, I hope that does address that at least the best I can. I'm largely ignorant on how the internet works with us in Russia, as far as internationally. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
All right, so that one is going to go to Fred Zerzal, who said Anduril is a new AI arms supplier to the DoD. And I think 60 Minutes, the TED Talk, did videos about them, and it's very interesting. You should look into what they're doing. Oh yeah, and Anduril is a very cool like defense startup, by the way. In fact, the guy in charge of that company is actually the guy who founded Oculus Rift, the VR headset. He moved on from playing video games and he moved on to making good weapons for the United States. A very interesting tech startup. And the very interesting thing about them is they actually market in this very like tech bro kind of style. Their marketing almost makes you think they're selling something to the consumer market, but they're selling to the defense industry, which is very unique. But Enforcer, pull them up real quick. Anduril defense, and let's take a look at what their current lineup is. They have like a really good line of like AI weaponry right now. Let's take a look.
And let us take a look. Here we are.
Man, look at that. Go. Let's see what they got under force protection. They got the counter US. They got the maritime intrusion. They got. Let's see about air system. What they got there? Let's go over there. They got the Barracuda.
Hey, we know some people like that.
click on the Roadrunner, I think it was. I think that's one I saw yesterday. Yep, that's it. This thing right here is designed to intercept drones, and it's launched from that pod right there. You can see it taking off right there in this really cool video. See how their marketing is really sick? It's like a tech bro company, but there it is, smashing one. That right there is super cool, and the system's actually AI. So they have a system called Lattice that you can see up there at the top left corner that controls all this weaponry, and it all operates automatically, or you can manually tell it to take off. And it's like a whole suite of weapons that this works to defend airspace above bases, which might be needed because it sounds like we have a bit of an airspace problem in the U.S. and also Britain as well. So a good thing.
That's incredibly interesting. I actually will have to look into this a little bit more because I know a little bit about them, but I don't know a great deal about them. But with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. Thank you once again for sharing that with us. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person that threw in the lucky last question of the night?
All right, so I'm looking here because we got some good ones left. So I'm trying to pick the best one out of the ones we have left here. Let me scroll through here for a second here. But let's see here. Blah blah blah. Let's see. Blah blah blah. Let's see here. Oh man, there's so many good ones. I'm trying to pick the best one. Let's see here. I'm having a hard time choosing. Let's see here. All right, so I'm going to go with this one. It goes to Knox Date. And Knox said, sorry for the stupid question. Also, once again, not stupid at all. I don't know why everybody's calling their questions stupid tonight. They're actually pretty good. Knox said, but with the fast preparations on NATO military production, do we see the war beginning of spring, summer, or next year? And also, I'm going to buy some merch. Hey, we also don't have any merch out right now, but we will soon. Again, if I can get around to it and actually find the time, I will put it out again. Probably the LSA flags, by the way. But Enforcer, how do you answer that question?
I would have to answer that question as in, I have a feeling that it most likely would happen within a year from now, because the Russian economy is going to collapse within at least 2 years, and the Russians will probably get desperate enough to start a war a little bit before the collapse is inevitable. So that means it'll probably be a year from now. That's probably also why they're sharing this information with them, because it's not really like they can ramp up production in just a week or a month. So they're probably sharing it with them about a year out from when they think it's going to be inevitable. So by then, their abilities will have increased at least a significant proportion. So actually an incredibly good question. And so I hope that does answer it at least the best I can from what we would assume would be logical. But with that, we've reached the end of tonight's stream, and what a stream it was. Over the course of the entire stream, we raised $4,111 in support of Save the Children, an absolutely incredible thing. And I got to thank y'all massively once again for supporting that fundraiser, and not only that, watching the stream tonight. So far, 70,000 people have watched the stream in only 2.5 hours. And at the peak, there was 11.9 thousand people here. We are entirely honored and appreciative to know that so many of y'all were here with us tonight watching the stream. Sorry for my quieter coverage. The headache was getting worse over the course of the whole stream. It's still a little rough right now, but nevertheless, we are always happy to have y'all here. And with that, we will see you all on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours, well, actually 48 hours of news from around the world. And if there's any major news to report on, Matthew will be the one telling you all about it tomorrow. And so with that, good night. Let's go, baby. You cut out, sadly. But with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Least Spring Army. The Least Spring Army will never die.
And once again, folks, thank you all for another great fundraiser stream tonight. It was a very successful one with raising over $4,100 for Save the Children, and I love to see it yet again. The LSA came through, and we sincerely do appreciate that generosity. It's helping out a ton with saving the children. And also, by the way, folks, I want to make this quick announcement and let you all know right now. The Greenland video, the video that's coming up that I'm currently working on right now, I think it's going to be an unequivocal banger when it comes out. And if you're on the Patreon, you'll see that I've actually got a script written for it. I've got people working on it, animations and things like that. I'm eyeing a Friday release on that video, or maybe a Saturday release of this upcoming week. So it's going to be a very good one. So be ready for that. And that'll be my big thank you for the huge fundraiser tonight for Save the Children. And with that, folks, thank you all again for watching and the 70,000 people that join us at the end of it. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, get some rest, and we'll see you all on Tuesday night. And good night.
We shall